The following is a presentation from the MJCast, the internet's premier podcast on all things Michael Jackson.
You're listening to the MJCast by MJ fans for MJ fans.
The idea is to innovate, or else why am I doing it?
When I create my music, I feel like an instrument of nature.
You let it create itself, really. I know I do. And I love to entertain. That's one of my favorite things. I love my fans. Just simply Michael Jackson.
Welcome to the MJCast, your source of news and discussion on the King of Pop. Hello and welcome to episode 24 of the MJCast, our premiere for season 2. My name's Jamon Bull and I'm here with my co-host Q and special guests Andy Healy and Charles Thomson. We've got a jam-packed show for you guys today. We're going to be talking all about Off the Wall being reissued as a CD and Blu-ray set, a new MJ 101 book on Off the Wall, Miguel performing a Michael Jackson tribute at the upcoming Grammys, the Jacksons performing at Art on Ice in Switzerland, Joseph Fiennes playing Michael Jackson in an upcoming 9/11 film, and an update on the Sirova vs. Casio lawsuit. We'll also be talking about a million leaks from the Dangerous era and a new book called The Dangerous Philosophies coming soon. All today on the MJCast. Q, how you doing?
Good morning. Welcome to season 2, Jamon.
I'm so excited. We've had a couple of months off, but we're back in the saddle.
Yeah, I was starting to miss it a little bit.
Yeah, me too. It's been like an interesting couple of months. Really, really good though to recharge and get our batteries ready to go again for another season.
Yeah, totally. And we've got some other guests with us today.
Absolutely.
We've got a regular guest, Charles Thomson, and we've also got a new guest, Andy from MJ 101. Hello, guys.
Hi.
How you doing, Charles?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, really good. It's a bit late there for you, isn't it, in London?
It is 11:15 p.m.
Yeah, our time zones never work out with anyone in UK at all. It's always so cruel.
I feel sorry for you, Charles. So thanks a lot for being here.
It's no problem at all. I'm a bit of a night owl anyway, so...
Don't tell us that. We'll keep you up all night.
Well, you do anyway.
Oh, that's true.
So we've had, since our last couple of months off, we've actually, gained a lot of new listeners on iTunes who haven't actually heard a new episode of the MJCast come out in their time listening to us. So they might not be as familiar with you, Charles, as we'd think. So would you be able to give our audience a bit of a rundown on who you are and what you do and why you're an MJ fan?
Okay, well, in terms of who I am and what I do, I am a reporter in England. I work for a regional newspaper in England as a court reporter and investigative reporter. I sit in on murder trials, child abuse trials, etc. I'm best known to Michael Jackson fans because I wrote an article in the Huffington Post on the 5th anniversary of the verdicts in the Michael Jackson trial called One of the Most Shameful Episodes in Journalistic History. And that was a 5,000-word analysis of the media's reporting of the Michael Jackson trial, which compared that reporting to the transcripts of what was going on in the courtroom to demonstrate that the reporting was completely biased and misleading. In terms of how I became a Michael Jackson fan, I was about 7 years old at primary school, and I went to my friend Michael's house, and he had on VHS the History video collection, History Volume 1. And he played that video while I was at his house. And I immediately came home and begged my parents to get me a copy, and I got one for Christmas. And there was no turning back after that. 2 years later, I saw him live on the History Tour. I was 9 years old. I saw him at Wembley Stadium. And I saw him twice more after that. I saw him at the 2006 World Music Awards, which I wrote an article about on my blog, because it was wrongly reported that he was booed off stage. And I also saw him at the 2009 This Is It concert announcement at the O2.
Awesome. It's so cool to hear your origins as a fan, because often people know you obviously as the Huffington Post writer, but yeah, it's just so cool to hear about how you actually became a fan in the first place. But I also understand you're a big Prince fan as well, not just a fan of Michael Jackson.
I'm a huge Prince fan. Last year he played a concert in London and I queued outside for 10 hours. I've seen him 6 times. and whenever he comes to England, I'm there. I think he's a total genius.
Yeah, incredible performer, and as I understand, Q, you were up pretty early as well, trying to get Prince tickets.
Oh no, I was trying to set up an account because he just announced yesterday that in like 2 weeks he'll be playing here in Perth, which is insane. So I was like, oh cool, now I have to figure out what my password is for that Ticket Tech account. But apparently I didn't even have a Ticket Tech account, so I had to just set one up. Charles, I've just realised you're younger than me. You're very accomplished.
Am I? How old are you, Q?
Older than you.
How do you know? How do you know you're older than me?
Because you just told me how old you were when you went to the history concert.
Oh, how old were you when you went to the history concert?
A couple of years older.
Okay.
Moving on. Hello, Andy.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Hello over to the USA. So Andy is, I think probably best known for your incredible Michael Jackson 101 book series, your eBook series, which are stunning, and a new one was just released this week. But did you want to tell us a little about yourself and about your incredible book series and some other stuff that you might have worked on and how you became an MJ fan?
Sure. Let's start at the beginning. I became a fan of MJ back in '79 when Off the Wall was released. Heard Don't Stop Till You Get Enough on the radio, and pretty much that day went out and got, oh, not that day, but when the album came out, went out and got the vinyl. And yeah, had basically been a fan since then. Fortunate enough to have seen Michael on the Bad Tour, 4 shows of the History Tour, and did have tickets for This Is It, but we all know how that played out. My association in terms of doing the MJ 101 series, first book, MJ 101 Greatest Songs, was published, or released rather, in 2013, and then since then I've just been doing supplements, little add-on eBooks to cover off various other items in terms of his career, short films, remixes, the History album, and recently Off the Wall.
Yeah, and what an amazing series it is, Andy. I think it's incredible. I really want to just give you some props, mate, because I think you're just a total class act. The books themselves, the ebooks, are just full of beautiful high-resolution images. The layout of the text, everything is just absolutely stunning and a real pleasure to engage with, especially on an iPad or something like that where everything's displayed so clearly.
Oh, yeah. My iPad Air, it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
I want to ask you, I've been meaning to ask you for a little while about this actually, but you've got an interesting sort of model on your website when somebody goes there to actually access an MJ 101 ebook to download to their device. Obviously, they're all free in a sense, except that they've got to pay in a certain way, and they pay with getting the word out on social media. So when you go to download it, the site asks you to tweet out or put a Facebook post up about this to get the word out. How come you chose that model instead of money? Because, I mean, the products are so incredible. I'd be totally willing to pay for them.
I do have a running joke with my wife that if I charged, let's say, I don't know, $5 or $10 for a book, I'd probably have earned to date probably about $10.
I doubt that. Yeah.
So, no, I mean, my intent was always to, this is just one fan's point of view, trying to, engage other fans in discussion about the music. And my aim was always just to produce them and release them and let everybody access them for free. The pay with a tweet thing came around just as a way of basically trying to get the word out. And it's only on 2 of the 5 books that are currently available. And I keep going back and forth whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. But, I've had a pretty positive response from people thinking that it's a fair trade to just tweet about the book and get a free copy. So, yeah.
I think it's more than a fair trade, and we are always happy to let people know about your stuff. And when there's a new release, like there has been this week with the Off the Wall ebook. But if anyone heads over to mj101series.com, you will see the full collection, and you can download those with a click and enjoy them because, yeah, I love them. They're just beautiful, and I really sort of wish that you got more props for them, really. Like, I would be quite happy to see you in the Off the Wall documentary talking about Michael's work.
Definitely.
Yeah, I don't know whether I'm that qualified as some of the people, but maybe, I don't know, who knows. But, it's just, as I say, it's just kind of, one fan's passion and commitment about the music of Michael and trying to get the focus back onto it because for me, for too many years, there were other things that seemed to dominate the actual artistry and music that he produced. So it was just, my gentle nudge to kind of get it back in that direction.
Well, I think it's certainly helped.
In addition to the incredible content of what you write, it's the visual appearance of the books that I find just stunning. Like the attention to detail with typography, text placement, image placement. Like, I've got to ask, like, how calculated is all of that? Like, how much work do you put into how the books appear?
Yeah, my background is advertising. I worked in advertising for 15 odd years. So I kind of have an eye for kind of design, and I'm a copywriter by trade. So yeah, when I was laying, as you kind of see each edition of the books kind of come out, they go from a fairly classic with MJ 101 sort of structure through to more visual impacts of like the off the wall and the history, and even the remixes. I think that was the turning point where I went full page on them with the images and just trying to give people, as much a sensory reward to flicking through and reading my observations on the tracks.
Yeah, Jamon raves about the typography and all the visual stuff quite often on our phone calls.
Aesthetically, I find the series to just be so, like you said, rewarding, just sitting there with an iPad, and especially like, with a retina display where you can't distinguish the pixels, and seeing these incredible photos from the era. And you often choose, well, pretty much always choose photos that match what you're talking about. I think your books would be especially good for people like new fans who may be discovering these photo shoots for the first time while they're reading about these things that you write about.
Yeah, I mean, there's a plethora of great shots of Michael, dating back from the Jackson 5 days all the way through. So it is kind of that challenge of wanting to present something visually that's just, impactful and inviting to people to really have really draw them into the experience. And hopefully, they're listening to Off the Wall while they're reading the book, and or they're listening to the tracks in 101 and kind of queuing up each song as they. And I just wanted it to kind of be that fully immersive experience, both rich visually and hopefully with a strong narrative as well.
I actually totally did that with the history album. I had each track queued up and I listened to it as I read the history album. But for the Off the Wall album, I didn't have my music. I didn't have headphones with me, that's right. And so I couldn't do that. But I actually found I didn't even need to. Like, you quote the lyrics and that's all it takes for the song just to fully form in my head. And I was like singing along as like your lyrics were in the book when you were using it as a quote. So it was so rich that I actually didn't even need the music. But with the music is a really great way to read through them.
Yeah, I actually have tried my best to actually structure the writing of it to the actual pace of the song that I'm talking about. So hopefully when I'm talking about the bridge of Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, that's when it's playing for you in real time. So it's kind of written and paced in that regard. So yeah, I mean, unless you're a speed reader, you're kind of messing it up for me. But that's been my aim, so that you didn't have to kind of, go back and go, okay, he's talking about the bridge here, but it hasn't happened, or it's already happened, or, I'm trying to pace it with the actual song.
So it's probably no coincidence that your latest edition is all about Off the Wall then, I guess. How long's it been out for now?
Just released it, I think, February the 5th. So I think it's only been like just over a week now.
Yeah, so just a few weeks before the new product comes out for fans to enjoy. So what an awesome companion to the set we're about to get. And that might lead us into our first news item, I think, of the of today's show. And it's all about Off the Wall, obviously, coming out very shortly. There was a press release that came out from Sony and the Michael Jackson estate telling us that Off the Wall is to be reissued as a CD and Blu-ray set, and also a CD and DVD set for those of you who like DVDs. And that's to come out on February 26th this month. So might ask Charles, how are you feeling about this Off the Wall reissue? Are you excited about it, or?
No. I mean, I have plenty of copies of Off the Wall already from the previous re-releases. remastered versions, etc. The only thing that really was of interest to me was the documentary, which I watched the other day, and probably won't watch again.
Yeah, and we'll cover that probably a little bit later in the show. We're going to talk about that as our main discussion topic. But yeah, it was, and I didn't mind it. I thought it was an interesting thing to watch. I am interested mainly when I think about the set itself being released as, you know, a CD and DVD or Blu-ray set. One of the obvious exclusions from the set is any kind of extra material, like demos or, you know, like extended mixes, remixes, acapellas, instrumentals, anything like that. There's none of that on there. It's just the album sort of as it was originally released, being put out there with this documentary. And really, Sony are asking fans that have bought this album to buy it again to get this documentary. And I don't know how I really feel about that. In a sense, I actually am really excited about this coming out because it means new fans that have never bought Off the Wall will be able to get it in a pretty good set, including this documentary. And is that kind of how you feel, Q? Or?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I don't have a huge urge or need to get it because, like Charles, I've got so many versions of Off the Wall, like, you know, from vinyl all the way through the was it 2001 re-release, which actually had interviews with Rod Temperton and Quincy Jones, a new booklet, and then it also had bonus material of the demos for both Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Working Day and Night, the demos from 1978. So even that had some bonus stuff on it. And this one has nothing except for the package that is different. And chalk. Inexplicably chalk. Like, I get that there's chalk on the cover of the album, but they actually have it so you can open the CD up. And it is only a CD size package. It looks really large on the video for it, but is actually only CD size. So you open it up and you use your chalk to draw on it. I can't think of any of my Michael memorabilia and products that I have that I would want to draw on with, even it is chalk that you can rub off, but I don't want to draw, so I can't figure out where that's come from. I don't know, maybe that was a leftover marketing thing from the 2009 release that they cancelled, or 2008, whenever they had it up on the official Michael site before This Is It took over everything.
Yeah, it was a week before.
A week
it just
before.
got ripped down.
Yeah, then it was complete. So maybe that was something that was going to be part of that re-release. I don't get it. I wouldn't have got it then. I'm not going to get it now. I mean, I don't get the chalk concept then, so I still don't understand it now. So I don't know. I haven't fully decided, but yeah, there's just nothing for me. I have to say, I do like the packaging, except for the chalk. I think the colours and the packaging is really nice from what I've seen on the video. I think they did I love the colours, especially of the artwork for the documentary, which we spoke about on an earlier show in season 1. I do love that artwork a lot. So, and the packaging, like even for Bad 25 box set, was quite nice. So, I don't know. I wish there was extras on it. I really do. I just wish, even if it was, these extras that we've got, I'm sure they could find some other things to put on it. They said there was nothing to put on it.
It's very true. Andy, what do you think about this product?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with what everyone's saying. The completist in me will obviously go out and buy it, and I think that's part of what Sony kind of banks on, that generational fans will go out and buy it for the umpteenth time. You know, there were missed opportunities, as you know, it's been discussed. There's the Don't Stop Till You Get Enough demo, Working Day and Night demo. We've got She's Out of My Life demo as well that's been released.
That would have been incredible.
There is a demo for I Can't Help It. So they could have easily packaged together demos that are readily available. They could have done, not many fans, well, potentially not many fans know that the album actually was released initially without claps on Off the Wall, and also what's the other song that they did they went back in basically and did little touches to the album, as they would go on to do with Bad as well. So the album that I listen to most is the actual first ever pressing of the album of Off the Wall, which to me feels a little bit more organic and has a more kind of lush feel to it. When they went back in and did some overdubs on various tracks, they kind of filled out some songs that, to me didn't necessarily need it. But I think there would have been opportunities to include those original mixes and just make it more of a journey of Michael during that period.
Andy, can I ask about those original versions, which I only learnt about reading your book, the Off the Wall 101 book? Is that really can only be found on vinyl?
No, it's because I've got it on CD as well. So the first CD issue, at least in Australia, had the original mix of the album as well.
Okay.
So I've got it on CD, obviously cassette and vinyl. So it should be around, and I think you can easily search YouTube now, and people have uploaded the two kind of different mixes, and whether or not you are a fan of the claps on Rock With You or stuff like that, it's, all up to, I guess, how you first experienced the album.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear that. I don't think I've heard those original versions before, interestingly, but I think I did read something about that on the MJ Archives, the Facebook page, the Facebook group. And look, I've got to ask, I've seen some discussion on there about the quality of the sound as well. I've seen some fans say that this, I don't know much about it, but this mix apparently is not as high fidelity or as high quality as what we got on that lossless 2001 reissue. Do you know much about that, Andy?
There's been debate about, I think there was a press release put out on a website that talked about it they've used upgraded, mastered for iTunes masters. Some people have taken that as being not as strong as potentially the 2001 special editions that most people kind of talk about as being the best sonically sounding version of the album. Mastered for iTunes is a mastering technique, I guess, that is mostly aimed, as the name suggests, for iTunes, for digital downloads and streaming. So I don't know whether or not they would have been using that for the actual physical CD release, but I guess time will tell, and we'll be able to kind of compare and contrast. It has been noted, though, that for most people, whether or not you'll be able to tell any differences between the 2001 special edition or, a mastered for iTunes download may not be that noticeable.
We're going to be talking later about the documentary, the Spike Lee film, which has everyone had a chance to watch?
Sure have.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay, cool. Excellent.
I did think of one thing to do with this album, because it really strikes me as odd. I just have to say, it really strikes me as odd that the album is coming out in such a bare bones kind of state, and it's made me think about why that might actually be, and I'm trying to figure out why there's no demos, why there's no instrumentals, and why it is just the album by itself and just with the documentary. And it got me thinking about the people around the album that may not be seeing eye to eye with the estate at the moment. We know that Quincy Jones, for example, who produced the Off the Wall album, hasn't been featured in Bad 25 or the new Off the Wall documentary in terms of new interviews that he's recorded. And we also know that there's been some legal issues between him and also Sony Music. So I'm just wondering whether that, for example, and then the demos, we know Randy and Janet Jackson are on those demos and they don't exactly see eye to eye with the estate. Could some of these relationships that are happening and some of the legal issues around them is it possible that they're blocking maybe these songs' releases, so that's why we're seeing such a bare bones package? What do you think about that, Charles?
It is certainly notable that Quincy Jones, in particular, has not featured in Bad 25 and has not featured in the Off the Wall documentary. They've included him in archive, but he's not contributed. I'm not sure whether the reason for that is because he's suing the estate for royalties, or it may well be for health reasons, I think, because he's still quite active and he does crop up here and there and do question and answer sessions and that sort of thing. But if you watch his televised interviews in recent years, then on occasion he does seem to be slightly confused. He doesn't remember things. Like, as somebody who knows a lot about the albums and about Michael Jackson, you're listening to Quincy's interviews and he's getting it all wrong. So I don't know whether maybe he's losing his memory or something. But in terms of these disputes blocking the release of those demos, I don't think so. I think Sony has the rights to all that stuff, I'm pretty sure. In fact, there's a fan called Waldo, and he said that when Thriller 25 came out, Michael didn't even realize that the demos were on that package. He thought it was just remixes. And he said to Michael, I heard the Hot Street demo or something. And Michael was like, how did you hear that? And he said, what do you mean, how did I hear it? It's on Thriller 25. And Michael went ballistic. He was furious. So I think Sony, certainly as a result of the deal that it struck with the estate after Michael died, I think it has the right to release all that stuff if it wants to, and it was included in the documentary, the Don't Stop Till You Get Enough demo. I just don't know what the reason is for not including it. I mean, the cynic in me says probably because they're planning on doing Off the Wall 40 in about 3 years' time, and then they'll want us to buy it all over again.
Well, I'm probably going to, I'll be honest, I'm probably going to buy it. I don't want to buy it, but I probably will because I want that documentary on Blu-ray. I wish it was out there as a standalone thing because I would prefer to have to, to go and buy that documentary for $20 or $30 as a standalone Blu-ray, but as it stands, I'm probably going to have to spend, 35 to 40 Australian dollars to get the set with the album that I don't really want again, but...
Is it not coming out as a digital documentary release?
That's a good question.
iTunes or something, maybe? Netflix?
Bad 25 did come out on iTunes as a standalone film, so that's possible as well. I like to kind of own the physical thing, though. I like I'm all about digital for sure, but like when it comes to Michael, I love having the physical product. So, oh well.
Yeah, there's nothing like opening up. Like, hang on, here we go. Opening up the CD case and pulling out the little booklet and flicking through and getting the images or the lyrics or something like that. I love that about all the products. What are you guys' favorite tracks on Off the Wall? My favorites would be Rock With You, Working Day and Night, Get on the Floor, and She's Out of My Life, and Burn This Disco Out. How about Charles? What's your favorite tracks off the album?
Definitely Don't Stop Till You Get Enough is probably my absolute favorite, but I think I actually really, really love It's the Falling in Love. I just adore that song, and I Can't Help It as well is a massive favorite. And Working Day and Night, of course, which is just phenomenal. I just love that song, and it's incredible when you think about how young Michael was when he wrote Working Day and Night and Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, and how complex they are in terms of the arrangements. You have this just layer on top of layer on top of layer of rhythm, and it's all there in his demos as well. Really fantastically complex songs. I just think they're fantastic.
How about yourself there, Andy?
Yeah, so for me, definitely Don't Stop, Working Day and Night, Get on the Floor, and I Can't Help It. They're kind of like the key standout tracks for me that have kind of, stood the test of time. Just looking at the Michael tracks, so Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Working Day and Night, and Get on the Floor, that he penned or co-wrote, you just kind of get to see an artist who you get the feeling of has learnt so much in his career and has kind of had all these ideas brewing and has kind of said, okay, here's my opportunity to kind of put them all down.
And Jamon?
Girlfriend.
Cool.
Not really.
Okay.
No, my favourite song on Off the Wall. Well, I got two. So definitely Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. I think it's one of Michael's most seminal pieces ever. It's absolutely timeless and
Without doubt,
just brilliant to listen to. It draws people to the dance floor even today, and probably always will. And I think in terms of a really unique song, I think I Can't Help It is just stunning. It's probably I think Quincy Jones said this at some point, but it's probably the closest Michael Jackson ever got to recording a proper jazz song. Yeah. And there's a mood in that song that's in no other Michael song that I can think of. And yeah, it's just incredible. There's also a great Beyonce cover version of that song at one of her concerts she did a few years ago that I might put in the show notes. But I think it was just after he passed away in about 2009, late 2009, something like that. She did, and I don't know if it's a cappella, but yeah, she did a live version of I Can't Help It at one of her tours.
I'll have to go check that out.
It was very good.
It's fan shot. It's not like professionally shot or anything, but the audio is beautiful. It'll give you goosebumps. It's really, really hauntingly beautiful.
This, of course, isn't his first solo album, though, is it? There's, 4, 5? There's Got to Be There in 72, Ben in 72, Music and Me in 73, Forever Michael in 75, that were all solo albums prior to this. So don't start your Michael discography right from Off the Wall, because there's 4 other solo albums out there prior to this one.
Yeah.
So,
and actually the official press release for this new reissue of Off the Wall made some big factual errors. I think it said that this was his first solo album, and it also said that Don't Stop Till You Get Enough was his first solo #1, both totally incorrect.
Yeah, that was also in the official Facebook post about the album, and I actually emailed the guy in charge of the MJ online team, Jeff, and I let him know about it, and he said he actually replied and told me that he was going to get the people who wrote it, he was going to tell the people who wrote it what had gone wrong, and apparently the MJ online team didn't even write that press release. It was Sony that wrote it. So yeah, it's unfortunate that there's those factual errors out there, but it just fuels the fire of, like, there's a lot of fans out there that have the opinion that Sony try to build this narrative that Michael's solo career started in the late 70s after he left Motown, just to kind of maximize their own sort of catalog of his work. The truth is that Michael did have a solo career before he went to Epic Records, an amazing solo career with #1 hits, Oscar performances, brilliant songs. So I think those definitely deserve credit where they're due, like Q's saying.
I think the distinction that that I think people are trying to make is that it is his first solo album where he's under, it's under his direction. It's kind of his adult coming of age album, where all the Motown solo albums definitely have got a lot of great material there and showed the development of the artist. It's his first opportunity to kind of say, okay, I'm writing songs that I'm going to record. I'm going to co-produce the album. I'm going to work with Quincy on tracks. I'm going to, present myself to a new audience, hopefully in a new way that as, we know he was trying to do, get people to forget about the little, wonder kid from the Jackson 5 and really focus on himself as a mature contemporary artist.
There is a beautiful collection which came out, ironically, 5 days after Michael passed away, and it's called Hello World, and it was issued by I think Hippo Select, which is this great label that digs out old stuff that's kind of forgotten and then puts it back out. They did and everything they release is like a collector's edition. Everything they produce is stunningly packaged. They did a fantastic collection called the James Brown Singles, which was 11 double disc sets, and I have that whole thing up in my room. They're all, and the Hello World set is this kind of yellow hardback book with 3 CDs in it, which collect together all of Michael's solo Motown songs, but package it with this beautiful booklet full of photographs with really in-depth liner notes as well. And it's well worth getting a copy if you can. It's such a beautiful set.
I agree. It is. It's an incredible set. I have that. It's one of my favorites, and it really fleshes out your iTunes library or your collection in general with a lot of music. And it's oh my God, it's beautiful packaging, and then the collection itself is so thorough. It's really incredible.
Yeah, I've got that one. I went and bought it after MJ passed. I went on like a massive Michael Jackson buying spree and bought like everything I didn't own. And that was one of the things I got. And I think one of my favorite songs on that set was a song that he recorded just before Off the Wall came out, called, have you guys heard We're Almost There?
Yeah.
And I love that song. I reckon that song, I would, if I had to pinpoint where I felt Michael grew creatively to another level as a solo artist, I would actually pinpoint that song more so than Off the Wall as the beginning of him as an adult, mature solo artist. But yeah, beautiful set.
There's another set which was by the same people, Hippo Select, called Rare Pearls. I don't know if you have that. That's the Jackson 5. That's a Jackson 5 box set with a bunch of kind of obscure songs. Again, I think 3 CDs worth, maybe 2 CDs, I forget. But that is an even more incredible box set. So beautiful the way it's produced. And when you buy these sets from Hippo Select, and they're so stunningly put together with so much care and attention, and the liner notes are fantastic, and everything is designed beautifully. And then you look at some of the stuff that the estate has been putting out, and you just think, how come this little label that almost nobody's ever heard of is able to do such a fantastic job with these posthumous releases? And the estate and Sony managed to make everything look so kind of tacky. Yeah, I mean, the best Sony can come up with is a bit of chalk.
Well, it's not like they haven't put out great products before. Let's think about the Ultimate Collection. Now, that came out when Michael Jackson was alive, though, but it's clear that Sony can put out beautiful products when they want to.
But yeah, no, not posthumously. Nothing that's come out posthumously has been good, I don't think. I mean, you had the DVD collection, Vision, or whatever it's called.
Yeah. With its lenticular cover.
Fantastic packaging.
Yeah, but the way it was put onto the disc was appalling. I mean, all the videos were in the wrong aspect ratios. All the videos were in stereo 2.0. Now, those videos all came out on DVD in 2001, and they were in 5.1 surround sound. And then you're coming forward like 9 years to what is supposed to be the Ultimate Collection, and they've reduced everything back to stereo 2.0. You're just going, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And it just seems like with everything that everything that's come out posthumously seems to have been a bodge job in some way. You had the bad DVD, which was like worse quality than a lot of the bootlegs that have been circulating for years. It just all seems a bit sort of slipshod. And then you get hold of these beautiful Hippo Select sets like Rare Pearls, and they're just incredible by comparison. They really put Sony to shame.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the next topic, Andy, can you just let everyone know where to get your Off the Wall ebook and about your site?
Yeah, sure. So if they just go to mj101series.com, and they'll be able to download everything from the 101 greatest hits through to the latest release of Off the Wall.
Awesome.
I just want to add one thing about this set, and I just for the purpose of not totally bagging it out, because yes, as a big Michael Jackson fan, I would like to have a CD with more songs on it than just what has come out before. But I do want to say that I like the idea of a new fan who goes and buys this album to just get this album as it was released. Because I think when you have an album with all demos on it and remixes and all kind of crazy stuff going on, like acapellas and interviews, like in the 2001 version, I think that it works in some ways as a completist. But if you're putting on the album Off the Wall at a party and you just want to rock out to the album, and then suddenly you've got Quincy Jones and Rod Temperton talking for 5 minutes during a party, it's just weird for me. So
they can put that on another disc, though.
They could put that on another disc. So I the only thing that I like about this album is the fact that it's got the album by itself on one disc. I really like that. I think new fans are going to enjoy the album more in some ways in that format.
And it could also be, I mean, as Charles alluded to, and you guys know, that there was plans to release, a special edition back in 2009. Whether or not it was Michael's intent back then just to have the album come out as it was, just, without any extra bells and whistles. It could be that's what his intent was. And it's an interesting thing in the fan community that we have sections who say, nothing should ever be released beyond what was, canon in a sense, what was released and what was approved by Michael. And then you have other fans who are like, I want everything that ever, he ever recorded. And there has to be that balance between how do you present the legacy of Off the Wall and say, look, here is the album, and really draw focus on that album without, pulling focus off to, and here's a demo, or here, God forbid, is a, dreadful remix by someone.
Pitbull.
And I didn't want to say the name. But just to... I agree with you. There is something special about putting the CD on and hearing the album as it was intended in its entirety without hearing, a track after Burn This Disco Out and it's a remix of Don't Stop to Get Enough or anything like that. I'm all fine for putting it on a second disc, but there is something about the actual listening experience of just hearing the album as it was created.
So in other news, we've got a performance coming up soon at the Grammys. I think the Grammys are happening pretty shortly. I think they're actually in 2 days. They'll probably happen before this episode comes out. And at the 58th Annual Grammy Awards, there will be a performance by Miguel. It's going to be She's Out of My Life to coincide with the Off the Wall reissue. I've got to be honest, I don't really know much about this singer. Like I've heard the name, I've seen him featured on other artists' music. And I from what I understand, he's a great vocalist. But yeah, we've got another Michael Jackson Grammys nod coming up very shortly to enjoy. Q, are you looking forward to it?
I'm looking forward to it because it's such a good song. I don't know the artist off the top of my head. He has been on the Grammys before performing, but yeah, it's a beautiful song. So I am looking forward to seeing the performance, and any tribute, I think, is always really cool.
Totally. Charles?
I really am not particularly interested. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anybody cover a Michael Jackson song and really do a particularly good job of it. I know She's Out of My Life is not a Michael Jackson song. He didn't write it, but I just find that it's very rare that anybody is able to cover anything that he's done and do a particularly good job of it. I don't know a whole heap about Miguel, but there's all this stuff. I mean, these awards performances tend to just end in disaster. You had that hideous Earth Song thing with Smokey Robinson and a few other people. Then you had Chris Brown when he did that awful tribute, and I just don't foresee good things based on precedent. I probably won't watch it, to be honest, just to spare myself the horror.
It's got some cool things about it. They've got Greg Phillinganes there on keys, so that'll be a nice little nod to the original people that collaborated with Michael on some of those earlier Sony records. So I think I'll probably give it a go. But Andy, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of Miguel, so I think he'll do a good job. Whether or not it's actually warranted, I'm not 100% sure. I think it feels more like a push to get Miguel another couple of minutes in the spotlight, and also to potentially push Off the Wall, obviously. But I just of all the songs off that album, I think that if they were going to do something, they're potentially stronger songs off there to kind of reflect more who Michael was. But it'll be interesting to see, but I'm not expecting great things from it.
I hope it's subtle and classy, like Charles, what you were talking about before, seeing Chris Brown do The Way You Make Me Feel and Man in the Mirror. It just wasn't classy. There was just something about it that was not... I didn't like it at all. I don't know why. I just didn't enjoy it. I hope that Miguel is not dressed in Michael Jackson clothes or something like that.
Oh, God.
Sequins from head to toe. Only Michael can pull that off, people.
Yeah, just something classy where he's being himself but giving a beautiful vocal rendition of She's Out of My Life. Maybe a video montage of Michael in the back. I don't know, but just something classy. I think it'd be nice. But I've got to say, Michael really has been getting a lot of... it seems like year after year at every award show, there's some kind of reference to Michael Jackson, and I expected that in 2009 and 2010, but to be continuing even today, like we had the Hollow Sham performance at when was that? Like last year or the year before? I can't even remember. I've blocked it out. But
year before, I think.
Yeah, it's like something every year at an award show. It's like really interesting. Is this going to be happening in 10 years' time or?
Well, it was said, award shows were so desperate for Michael to appear, allegedly, that they would just make up awards that they'd never given to anyone before, just so they could give them to him and he would show up. Because there was a kind of an excitement around that whenever Michael Jackson would show up at an award show, because he was considered such a kind of a recluse and an elusive figure. And since he's gone, you see it in a lot of fans. Now that Michael's gone, they're desperately trying to recapture that magic in a way, to put a pin in that excitement and hold it in place and cling on to it. And that's why they kind of work themselves up into a frenzy about these posthumous releases and start these ridiculous let's all buy 17 copies and get it to number one campaigns and all that stuff. Yeah, it's this constant trying to whip the magic back up, trying to make something happen that's just never going to happen again. And that's probably what's going on with these award shows, I think, because the fact is the music scene today, well, I say fact, my opinion is that the music scene today is pretty barren, and that really the only way to cling on to any kind of credibility as an award show is to keep trying to get these legendary artists to come and kind of legitimize you. I think you need a Mick Jagger, or you need an Elton John, or you need somebody with some status and some legitimacy to come and kind of validate you as an awards ceremony, I think. And I think that's probably where this is all coming from, apart from, of course, as Andy said, this is just a shameless advert for Off the Wall as well. It's basically an advert. It's not a tribute, it's an advert. But yeah, I think there's an element of that as well. Who really cares about if Chris Brown is going to be performing at an awards ceremony, or if, I mean, who even is out there anyway? Rubbish, Justin Bieber, who cares? So I think that they're desperately trying to recapture the magic of a period when the artists were worth tuning in to watch on an award show.
I don't even remember the last award show I watched, actually. Because back in the day, I would, even if there was a tiny possibility of even a flash over to Michael for something or an acknowledgement, I would have tuned in and watched the whole damn thing. But now it's I can't even remember the last one.
And I think that's that's what they're, as Charles said, it's kind of what they're playing at. They want to draw, as many eyes to the TV set for the ratings. And so, we've seen it in clickbait, put Michael Jackson in a headline and people will read the article. So I think it's a similar situation with these award shows. It's like, say that there's going to be a tribute to Michael and you'll get a slew of people kind of tuning in. It's, an easy get, and you just hope that it's done from the performer's point of view. I mean, Miguel, an amazing vocalist, but they'll always come up against Michael Jackson. And when someone else is doing a Michael Jackson song, no one comes close. So I think it's it's a losing proposition from the get-go. I can understand it from an artist saying, I want to pay tribute, but I think the difficulty is you will always have that comparison straight away going, he'll be singing it and you'll be hearing Michael in your head and you'll be going, no, he's not hitting that note, or he's changing that phrase or whatever. So it'll be an interesting one to watch.
Thank you for letting us know about it, Jamon.
No problem.
So moving on to a little bit of Jackson's news. They are currently on tour in Switzerland with a very different performance. They are performing as part of the Art on Ice touring show. So it's like a large ice skating show with singers. Jessie J is also a performer in this. and they're performing some of their, of course, signature tunes and massive hits. Has anyone had a chance to watch any of the videos, Jamon?
Yes, I have. It's really something to behold. I saw a video put out there by Jackson Source the other day on Facebook, and wow, it's really full on. Like, I mean, you got these big stages that the Jacksons are performing on, and the stages are moving around on the ice. So, like, they're not even stationary. They're singing and dancing on a stage that's slipping and sliding around this giant ice rink, and then there's all performers on ice skates and whatever you call them, like zipping around them, doing crazy dance moves, like moonwalking on the ice, all kinds of crazy things. Great lighting. The dancers are wearing like LED costumes and things like that. But of course, what it's all about is the music, and the Jacksons are performing those songs with as much vibrancy and excitement as they have in the last 5 years. So it's really, really interesting to watch. It's if you want to see the Jacksons in a really unique way, this is pretty unique.
Gentlemen, have you had a chance to look at any of this, Charles?
Yeah, I've seen the clips on YouTube. I mean, I think the Jacksons are a fantastic live act anyway. This does seem like a kind of a unique way to see them, and it's nice to see them branching out and doing these different kind of shows. I saw them last year at the Proms in the Park in London. They played for, I forget what it was now, so like 40,000 people in Hyde Park in London with a 100-piece orchestra or something like that, huge orchestra. And now they're doing this art on ice show where they're performing with the ice skaters. It's nice to see them kind of just exploring themselves a little bit, I think, and expanding their horizons and doing these unique shows. I think it's really interesting to see them going out on the road and doing this stuff. And I think it's a shame that they didn't do it earlier. I wish they'd been doing this since way before Michael passed away.
Yeah, absolutely. Indeed. I think the reception they get when they do perform, like at proms or here at Art on Ice, is still very warm. It's not just like the golden oldies that go along to see that, like the young people go, the highlight of proms is the Jacksons, or something, or the monster big performance they did. Was it late last year, Jamon?
Yeah, I think it was late. Oh no, it was early this year. Is it CES
early this year?
in Vegas?
The big trade show in Vegas. Everyone said the highlight performance was the Jacksons by far. So I'm the reception they're getting is well worth it and deserved. What are your thoughts, Andy? Have you had a chance to watch any of the clips?
Yeah, I have. It's interesting. I mean, I think it's the production quality is kind of second to none, as as being mentioned. They kind of float around on the ice, and what feels
the
like
logistics are amazing.
One big ice hockey puck. But yeah, it's just and obviously incorporating it with the talented ice skaters, and it feels like a weird combination, but somehow it works. And the way that they start the show with all the LED lighting, it's very reminiscent of the Immortal and One kind of routines where they used the LED lighting for Billie Jean. And it's just a fresh and exciting way of kind of seeing the Jacksons perform. And I don't know whether it's something that was exclusive to this, event just in Switzerland, or whether it's something that they plan to take on the ice, on the road, or but it's an interesting presentation.
Yeah, it's something I think like it'd be way more enjoyable to see in the flesh, actually live, than watching on YouTube as well. Especially if you're already a fan of these ice skating shows or ice skating in general, which I'm not. But if I was a big ice skating fan and I went to an ice skating show and the Jacksons were there being represented in that medium, it would just be amazing to see that. Like, yeah, I was quite blown away actually by it. What I found interesting as well was that the more the Jacksons perform over time, since Michael's passed, the more they seem to be incorporating his solo songs, especially from his later career. And I noticed in this particular show in Switzerland, they were even doing Black or White. And Tito's there doing the Black or White guitar riff. And
yeah, I saw them when they played here in the States. And yeah, it's weird. It's kind of an enjoyable experience, but at the same time, you kind of wonder, okay, why are they doing it? Are they doing it because they know it'll get the crowd going? I've got obviously no issues with them playing any Jackson 5 stuff, playing Jackson stuff, but when you hear them doing, like Black or White, for example, you kind of go, well, is it necessary? Couldn't you just do Shake Your Body Down? Or couldn't you do, Never Can Say Goodbye? Or could you, they've got such a rich heritage of their own material that you don't necessarily need to be borrowing from Michael's catalogue in a way. I mean, I don't mind, it's the same way that Prince will do, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough in his shows. People paying respect and paying homage to Michael through a live performance. They can do something like that, which they do fittingly with Gone Too Soon. But yeah, it's just that balance. To me, it's the same if Michael started playing Dynamite, or Sweetest or something,
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
I always, it's always interesting because in the moment you're kind of going, I don't know whether they should be doing this, but then the next moment you're kind of, getting to hear a song which perhaps Michael never performed played live, and so you get to experience that music that way. So yeah, I'm kind of 50-50 on it.
Now I've got Sweetest in my head. Thank you, Andy. I actually really love those songs. I love those singles from the 80s.
It's a really good album.
It is. Oh, and those awesome duets he did back in the 80s. Oh my God, so good.
Q, do you know if they did any of their solo stuff, like Summertime Feeling or Tito's new song? I can't remember what it's called now.
I don't know. I haven't heard any mentions of it, and I haven't seen any mentions of it, and that's a little bit surprising. I don't know how long the actual set was, though.
Yes.
So
Definitely.
maybe, but I haven't seen anything.
Yep. So our next news item. This one's a little bit controversial. It's definitely sparked up a lot of discussion in the Michael Jackson fan world.
Not just the fan world.
Actually, yeah, even beyond that. It's really spread like wildfire in the regular media. And of course, we're talking about Michael Jackson being portrayed in an upcoming film about 9/11 by Joseph, I think you pronounce it Fiennes. Is it Joseph Fiennes?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So we know that it's actually happening. I think Q and I broke we didn't break the news, but we spoke about it last year on our first season about this movie potentially coming out. And it looks like it is coming out for sure, because Joseph Fiennes was recently in an interview with Entertainment Tonight talking about his role as Michael Jackson in this film. And he's saying things, and of course all the controversy is all around him being, a white English actor playing an American black male in this movie, and he's addressed that straight away. Like, it's not like he's ignoring that fact. Like, he's on Entertainment Tonight actually saying, and I quote, "I'm a white middle-class guy from London. I'm as shocked as you might be." He acknowledges that Michael had vitiligo and states that he, in terms of physical appearance, was probably close to what Michael looked like at the end of his life. And basically says that he's shocked that he got the role in the first place.
Why is he shocked? It's not like it's a lottery and you win a ticket. It's an acting job that you go for.
I don't know.
Why is he shocked?
He didn't say why he was shocked. He just said he was shocked. So, movie's apparently coming out, and listeners, if you want to know what it's about, apparently it's about a supposed road trip that took place after 9/11 occurred. Michael was, of course, performing in New York City the night before, I think, 9/11 actually happened. And, he did 2 shows, his 30th anniversary celebration, concerts at the Madison Square Garden, 2 shows just before the attacks. And then the next morning, apparently, he jumped on a bus with Marlon Brando and Elizabeth Taylor, who were both included on stage in those specials. And apparently they jumped on that bus and went on a road trip to the other side of America or something. Well, I'm not really sure, but apparently that didn't even happen. Like, I'm hearing that didn't even happen. It was originally in a Vanity Fair article that it happened, and I'm hearing it never did. I think TJ Jackson from 3T, Michael's nephew, was on Twitter saying that didn't actually happen.
Also, the estate of Marlon Brando put a tweet out or a statement saying that this, yes, it is a good story, but it is not true at all.
Yeah, and like Joseph's on social media and places saying that it's meant to be, the film is not a dig at these people. What it's meant to be is a fictional story that's meant to be comedic and endearing, and mainly is trying to highlight how detached celebrities of their level can become from society. And if you look at it from that point of view, I'm imagining something that could be lighthearted and funny, and just seeing these three characters interact. I don't know. Like, I think it'd work well as something to read, like I would like to read the screenplay, but I have no idea. I just basically think there's no way this thing can visually work on screen. I don't know. I've always thought there's just no way Michael Jackson could be properly portrayed in a film. I mean, we saw what happened with Flex Alexander in the Man in the Mirror movie, or whatever that was, that TV series. That was just ridiculous. So I don't understand how anyone could portray Michael Jackson, especially in the later period of his life when he did look like such a unique individual. Like, I don't know how anyone could portray him. But that's just my kind of thoughts on it. Andy, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think I was like everybody. You first read it and you go, okay. You try to dig into it. I mean, first of all, as you said, it was based on a Vanity Fair article, which has since been proven to be completely fictitious. Whether you look at the cultural identity of a person and say, okay, well, should Joseph Fiennes be playing, a Black American, African American person? Was there no one else, qualified to play that role? My favorite kind of uproar that came out was somebody tweeted, they'll accept him playing the role as long as Angela Bassett plays Liz Taylor.
I did see that.
Love it.
which I think kind of, shows the hypocrisy of things. Especially in America at the moment, when you have the Oscars so white kind of uproar with the lack of African American and Black actors represented. There does kind of seem a bit of whitewashing, pardon the pun, of Michael's history. And yeah, I think that the damage in it is that potentially people will believe that this took place, and people will believe that, the three of them drove their way surviving on Burger King stops and finally got back to Los Angeles. But yeah, look, I think it's a made-for-TV film, and it's part of a series that are being made. It's not something I'm going to be rushing out to watch. And as you say, I think it's going to be very difficult whether there's ever going to be a biopic of Michael. A, how to focus on which period of his life do you focus on? B, who plays him convincingly? All those elements. So, yeah, I'm not something that I'm going to be tuning into.
I would have a serious issue if they continued to market this as a true story. This is not a true story. It's been denied by so many people who have first-hand knowledge. There is no argument to be made that this story could be true. It's categorically not true. So that's issue number one. If they're going to release this and claim that it's a true story, then that's bullshit, and it sucks. And I mean, this all hinges on Joseph Fiennes' performance, I think, because I really struggle to see how anybody could portray Michael Jackson in those years of his life and not make it offensive. I mean, from the way that they're going to have to make him look to, he's going to have to try and do that high voice, and I don't know if he's going to be playing Michael medicated as he was throughout
that period.
Those gigs in New York. I mean, the whole thing has the potential to just be such a cartoonish, offensive, kind of demeaning end result. And I really think it would take serious skill and empathy and restraint and subtlety to pull this off in any way that would not be grossly offensive. I mean, you saw, as somebody mentioned, Flex Alexander a few minutes ago. I mean, you saw what they did to Flex Alexander to try to represent Michael Jackson in the latter days of his life, or the latter years of his life, I should say, and the result was not good. I mean, you just have to look at Michael Jackson impersonators, right? These are people who spend their entire lives trying to figure out a way to look like Michael Jackson, and do that because they love him and they think he's brilliant, and they still end up coming out the other end looking I mean, like melted waxworks. I don't know what they're doing to themselves makeup wise, but so even people that are going out of their way to try to make themselves look good end up looking awful. So how they're gonna, because this, I mean, it's been described as comedic. I'm not liking that. I'm not liking the comedic thing and the portraying them as detached from society. I can just see this being hideous. I can see this being totally offensive. I think we're probably going to see Ralph Fiennes with completely ghost white makeup on, with a hideous kind of massive prosthetic nose. I completely dread to think of what the end result is going to be from this. I think this is the kind of thing the estate should be trying to stop, to be honest. I don't know why they're not intervening. And the Elizabeth Taylor and Marlon Brando estates have responded to this story and have stated absolutely resolutely that this story is bogus. And the Michael Jackson estate has not done that, and I don't know why. I don't know why they're allowing these things to go on unchallenged.
They've got chalk to sell.
They
very busy.
Q, what are your thoughts? Are you going to be tuning in to watch this?
It's going to be like a car crash, I think. Like, how are you not going to be able to see it somewhere? A clip of it, or... I think the story itself sounds hilarious. Like, can you imagine Michael Jackson, Elizabeth Taylor, and Marlon Brando, renting a car and then stopping at every, Burger King and everything along the way? Like, can you imagine? That's hilarious. That story actually is really funny and hilarious, but that's not a true story. Like, as a fictional story, that would be really funny, but people are just going to completely believe this actually happened. They really are. They don't you could scream until you're red in the face and no one will listen. They'll just think this is actually how it happened after such a a massive tragedy and horrific events in New York City.
Yeah. I think it could. What you're saying, I think it could work. Like,
the
in a
story
weird way,
itself could work in a weird way.
Yeah.
And I have to say, oh my god, I want to see Stockard Channing play Elizabeth Taylor. She would be incredible. I'm really looking forward just to seeing that at least. But yeah, I don't think that that's the avenue that they're going for, and I say that because possibly of the casting of Ralph Fiennes. I think that it's not well cast at Joseph Fiennes. My apologies, Joseph Fiennes.
Yes, Lord Voldemort is not playing Michael Jackson.
No.
The lesser of the Fiennes.
So I think because of the casting, they're going towards a more satirical and bad taste comedy. I can't see how the casting of this leads towards a sort of light-hearted, respectful story at all. I think they've gone for controversy and headlines and satirical, offensive comedy.
I think it could be funny in terms of here's three people that have no idea probably anymore how to function in a normal society without a massive entourage around them, and all of a sudden they're on their own. Two of them are quite elderly and probably need lots of, I don't know, things to get them through the day, like care, medication, whatever. I'm not really sure. And then all of a sudden they're in these normal scenarios where Elizabeth Taylor, Marlon Brando, and Michael Jackson have to walk into, like you said, a Burger King or a chemist or a drugstore or whatever. And just try to have normal conversations with people.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, it would be like the scene from Michael Jackson's Private Home Movies where he's in the shopping center with the kitchen glove on, trying to shop. I think it could actually work in that sense, but it's like a social experiment. How would these three megastars go in a normal scenario?
The fish out of water aspect is always interesting, seeing people outside their elements. And so when you have those, that in itself, you go, okay, that makes an interesting story. And obviously it did for Vanity Fair because they created the story. But I think where a lot of people are equally upset is the backdrop of 9/11. Does it somewhat trivialize the impact of 9/11, where and the reality of what Michael was actually doing, which was supporting fans, trying to make sure that the fans who had traveled from Europe or wherever were able to get out of New York and make their own way home as well. So I think, there are, again, you kind of look at the backdrop and the context of everything, and it just feels like it's, just not a terribly intelligent kind of way to go about presenting the story.
No, and there's another film that came out recently, actually, not anything to do with Michael Jackson, but you guys might have heard of the new film Steve Jobs, that was penned by Aaron Sorkin, won a Golden Globe, box office bomb, but it actually has been. It's quite a good film, actually. I thought I watched it and really liked it, but it's been really criticised by fans of Steve Jobs and also Jobs' late wife. I think her name's Lorraine Powell Jobs, but she's actually come out and said, and she wrote and called the people that were originally involved in the film before Danny Boyle was brought in to produce and before different actors came on board, and said, look, I don't think you should be involved in this film because my husband is not well represented in it. It's not based on reality. It's not what happened. There's scenes that are in it that are made up, and I don't want you to be involved. And lots of people backed off when his wife actually tried to do that. So it's a similar thing to me. It's like a movie that's fabricating things that never happened to the point where I would say it probably crosses over to disrespect.
With the Steve Jobs parallel, you can actually say, well, Steve Jobs did make those key speeches. Yeah. This is completely fictitious. It's got nothing to do with the actual reality of what occurred. And so, as you say, should this get any traction, that will become the story that comes on, and that people will say, oh, yeah, but Michael and Elizabeth and Marlon, all hopped in a bus and off they went. And it's like it didn't happen. So, they'll do the typical based on a true story and get around it that way. But, yeah, I just think, again, the fiction will become the fact. And unfortunately, in Michael's career, we saw that too many times.
That's right.
I think the timing of it is very bad as well, with the Oscars so white movement in the US and just the general unease that Hollywood is whitewashing history. And I know this is not a Hollywood production, it's actually a English production, but it doesn't sit well when even the upcoming film Gods of Egypt, directed by Alex Proyas, it's set in Egypt, and just the top billed cast are Jared Butler, Abby Lee, Brenton Thwaites, like a white teenager from Australia, Rufus Sewell, Jeffrey Rush. Like these are all white actors playing Egyptians, and this isn't the first time. Like, there's been so many films lately where they will be set in places where people of color live, and the cast is all white. And I think this is sort of just adding to it.
That's a very interesting point, because not only because you've got another layer to this, which is that this is something that Michael Jackson was specifically pissed off about. This issue of white people being cast in black roles, and it's been said by multiple people that in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, he was trying to get a film made about the history of Africa, about ancient Egypt, where the cast would be all black and nobody would make it. Nobody would invest any money in it. And that is why he went on to make the Remember the Time music video, because he had been turned down repeatedly with this movie project that he was trying to get into progress about ancient Egypt, and nobody would cast black people in the roles, even though clearly it's a black nation. So when you add that into the mix, the fact that Michael Jackson specifically was trying to counter this trend of white people being cast in black roles, for him to then die, and then for the industry to cast a white person to play him, seems like an additional disrespect.
I know, Jamon, I know you feel quite strongly in some ways about actors playing any role.
Well, look, I'll put it this way. And, okay, I just have to preface this by saying that I would prefer Michael Jackson to be played by a black actor any time he was portrayed. Any and every time. And I know Michael alluded to that kind of thing as well in his Oprah Winfrey interview, where he said it was a ridiculous rumour that he wanted a white boy to play him in... I don't know if was it a film?
It was a TV ad.
It was a Pepsi
ad.
commercial thing, wasn't it?
Pepsi commercial, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I would always love Michael to be portrayed by a black actor because he was a proud black American. We're dealing with a historical person here. We're not dealing with a fictional person. So, but at the same time, like acting is an art form where you're becoming something other than what you are when you are an actor. And I really love versatile actors that can play wildly different things to what they are. So, for example, Cate Blanchett as Bob Dylan in the film I'm Not There is incredible to watch because you've got a female playing a male, and I just think she does an outstanding job of it. And I don't like the idea of there being boundaries around what actors can do. Michael Jackson played a white man in the film Ghosts. And yeah, so I haven't decided myself what I think about this yet, because on the one hand, I think Michael as a historical figure should always be portrayed as by a black man because he was a proud black man. But on the other hand, I have this deep respect for the art form of acting and people being able to do very versatile, wildly different things to what they are in real life. So I think it's inherently... it doesn't sit comfortably with me when people say a white man can't play a black man. I don't like that from the point of view of what acting is. But at the same time, there needs to be greater equality, or just equality in general, in the film industry. And I think there's certainly not enough black lead roles at all. So I think, yeah, again, there's been a missed opportunity to have a black lead role where it would have been really fitting and appropriate. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's a complex scenario. That's why there's massive public debate about it.
I think the context, like the Cate Blanchett role in that film, that was a art house film that I think was experimental right from the concept of it.
Yeah.
This is a comedy.
Yeah, it's not the same league. And that's also gender, not ethnicity, which is different as well. So,
but also I think in that respect they were, looking at, I think they have 6 characters playing Bob Dylan all throughout the film. So it's like meant to be this evolving persona that they're looking at. Look, if Denzel Washington was starring in the biopic of Elvis, would there be an uproar?
Yes.
There you go.
Very much so.
But I don't know. Like I just think I would be open to that. Like,
but in the right context,
yeah.
If it was like that Bob Dylan one where it was 6 people playing him in different aspects of him, then that would fit.
Because then that's the concept of the film, as opposed to just going, we're casting someone. Who are we going to cast? We'll cast a British white guy.
Yeah.
Who was it that just played Moses recently? Was that Russell Crowe or someone?
Yeah.
I didn't see that film, no.
No, Noah, wasn't it Noah?
Oh, yeah, Noah.
He played Noah.
Noah's Ark.
What was there was a film recently with Moses in it, and it was played by, I'm pretty sure, like just this white American actor.
Was it called Exodus?
Yes, that's the one. And
who played Noah?
Christian Bale. Hello. There you go.
Yeah.
Like Christian. Yeah, there we are. Exodus, Gods and Kings. Christian Bale, Joel Edgerton, Ben Kingsley, Sigourney Weaver, John Turturro. Like, again, all of these actors are white actors.
Yeah.
Every single one that I can see. Except for the bad guy, I think.
And you're right. That is a trend, actually. So you have these kind of ancient movies where they're all from the same place. They're all from the same country, say Egypt. But then all of the goodies, as it were, are played by white actors, and then all of the bad guys and the henchmen are played by black actors, which is, that really is quite disturbing in a way. I mean, it's funny in that it's ludicrous, but really on a deeper level, it is disturbing that is still going on.
Mm.
Shall we move on to something? Let's head to the Super Bowl. Did you guys I don't know if you watched the whole game. Lord knows I would not, because I have no idea.
The rules.
I don't even know how Australian football works. Any of
I
those
watched it for the
codes.
commercials.
You watch it for the commercials. I think you're not the only one.
Yeah.
And what about the halftime show? Who saw the halftime show, which was Coldplay, Beyonce, and Bruno Mars? And I think we probably all would note straight up with Beyonce a nice little nod to her favorite entertainer ever. She was wearing an outfit heavily based on Michael's own Super Bowl outfit from his halftime performance from 1993. What did you think, fellas?
I thought it was a really nice nod. I mean, the whole aspect of the halftime performance was to kind of celebrate the 50 years of Super Bowl. And so paying homage to all, not all, but a lot of entertainers who had performed at halftime made sense. Was it the best halftime show I've seen? No, not by a long shot, but it was nice to see Beyonce kind of represent and come out in Michael's 1993 Super Bowl garb and do a good job of it.
Charles?
I did not see the Super Bowl halftime performance, I'm afraid. I've heard the Beyonce song, which to me sounds like a modem which is dying, and I don't like it. And the greatest Super Bowl halftime show ever, undoubtedly, was Prince, I'm afraid.
Oh, how did I know you'd say that, Charles?
Yeah,
That's not what the
unquestionably
polls
was
say.
Prince. Yeah, but those polls are rigged, you see, because there is a massive difference between Michael Jackson fans and Prince fans. And Michael's fans are obsessed by these polls. It's crazy. I don't understand. They actually set up codes. Like they create these robots on the internet which just vote in these polls over and over again. Why would you do that? I mean, who has got the time for that? But so Michael wins all of those polls. Every poll he wins, and that's how you know when he doesn't win that it's rigged. Like there was that poll, I think it was on Rolling Stone or somewhere a few years ago, for the greatest pop star ever. And he was winning right up until about a minute before the poll ended. And then all of a sudden, the number 2 had like 500,000 extra votes and they won. It was clearly a fraud. I don't know if that was Rolling Stone. I can't remember. It was a big magazine anyway. But, unquestionably, the greatest halftime show at the Super Bowl ever is Prince. I think Michael's... I get what Michael was trying to do with the images in the crowd and all that stuff, but for me, that is a hideous performance. Michael's Super Bowl performance, lip sync, start to finish, and badly. I didn't see this year's one. I shan't seek it out.
Not that we need to defend Michael's Super Bowl performance, but I think it is interesting to kind of note that was the change. So when Michael appeared on the Super Bowl, I think that was the first time in history they ever had ratings go up during the halftime over the actual game itself. And it kind of did set the benchmark for everybody who followed afterwards. There was more that they could do. And yeah, Prince's one was phenomenal, no doubting that. But it was kind of like that was the turning point for it and kind of like raised the bar, and then everybody, worked to top that, whether that was Madonna, Katy Perry, Janet, Rolling Stones, Bruce Springsteen, whoever. Everybody kind of like would look to that performance and go, okay, well, how do I bring my own thing to it? How do I make it a Super Bowl performance? And prior to 1993, there really weren't Super Bowl performances.
Yeah, Andy, I think you make an excellent point. I actually agree with both you and Charles. I agree with Charles in the sense that I think the Super Bowl performance Michael Jackson gave vocally was one of the worst performances he ever gave, because none of it was live except the bit where he's speaking 5 octaves lower than his singing voice in between 2 songs.
Yeah.
So, I agree with Charles on that side, but you can't ignore the fact that that was a revolutionary moment in Super Bowl history, in live performance history, or quote-unquote live performance history, and just TV history. It was a massive, massive moment. The scale it was done was bigger than ever before. I really like watching Michael Jackson's performance because I think the choreography and the dancing's great. I think his costume's great. everything like that. I do love the show as much as it grates me that he's not singing live when he was a great live vocalist. Beyonce's tribute was really special. I like tributes that are subtle. I like tributes that are not impersonations. And she wasn't there moonwalking with his, jam jacket on. She was just wearing the jacket, and there was slight nods to Michael. I think even a couple of moves in the choreography were similar to things Michael had done before. But yeah, it was subtle, it was respectful, it was cool. She's a huge fan of his. She says it in every single show she ever does. She does like little Michael Jackson tributes. So I thought it was amazing to watch, and it gave me goosebumps when I saw her wearing that awesome jacket.
It was I liked the halftime show. It was a decent one, and Coldplay were pretty cool. And then Bruno Mars, of course, another huge Michael fan. I believe he used to impersonate Michael as a young kid growing up. Yeah. So I think that's pretty cool that sort of he was there as well. And then the big message, the placards that the audience held up at the end, believe in love. I thought that just reminded me very much of the Heal the World moment. I don't think that was a direct tribute. I think that's just may have been influenced by, but that certainly gave me reminiscing of the 93 show.
Yeah.
But then in the video clips montage where Janet was left out of, the performer that was sort of highlighted in the video collection for the longest, again, was Michael Jackson.
Yeah, that was wasn't there there was a Coldplay song, wasn't there, playing over that video montage? Yeah. That was a part that gave me goosebumps for sure, because it was like paying respect to the king. It was great, but that bit where they left Janet out, man, that still grates me, because
they're never gonna acknowledge that again.
I know they won't acknowledge it again, but it just pisses me off, because what happened, and I don't know if we should go into a discussion around that incident, but it just annoys me, because it wasn't her fault what happened. We know it wasn't her fault, and it's just another example of a Jackson being railroaded by the media. And I just think, the performance itself has never been given the respect it deserves because of what happened at the end, the accident that happened at the end.
I think the issue with it is we also are seeing it through the eyes of Jackson fans, and most of us are probably big Janet fans as well. When you kind of remove yourself from that, because I was going, okay, when are they going to show Janet? And it's like, oh, that didn't happen. But then when you kind of watch it back and you say, okay, well, they didn't show the Black Eyed Peas, they didn't show Madonna, they didn't show, a whole. I don't think they showed Tom Petty. They didn't show. Maybe they did. They showed the Rolling Stones, but there was a slew.
They didn't show any of the old Disney ones either. Before they didn't show. Yeah, before they didn't show half those
people. So there was a lot of artists who weren't represented, whether or not they should have been represented, up for debate. And I'm sure each artist will say, Tom Petty fans will say, yeah, Tom Petty should have been up there. Janet fans will say, yes, Janet should have been. Madonna fans, yes, Madonna should have been. So, I don't think it was necessarily a slight against Janet. I don't think the NFL necessarily want to go back to that or remind anyone of that. But within context, I think, it's all part and parcel of trying to cram a 50-year celebration into 12 minutes.
Yeah. That makes sense. Thanks for being the voice of reason there, Andy. I'm a little bit angry.
I just want to put on record that I totally do not believe that was an accident, what happened in Janet's performance. I don't believe that even 1%. No. And also that I'm totally in favour of airbrushing Madonna out of anything. And also, did they show James Brown?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yeah, they showed James Brown, Whitney, Michael. They were the key ones.
Paul McCartney,
Prince, Rolling Stones, Bruce Springsteen.
Katy Perry, I think.
Did Katy get a look in? Yeah, I'm not sure. They're the ones I can remember.
Yeah, it was good fun. It was nice to be reminded of the 93 Michael Hart show, though.
Yeah. Oh, did you guys notice, because I'm such a video buff, did you, I was watching it in a pretty low quality version, but did you notice if Michael's footage looked any better than we'd seen it before? Was it better than the DVD release that came out with the Dangerous one that had Heal the World or whatever it was?
I never noticed. It was a pretty bad YouTube video that I was watching.
Yeah.
I saw the live broadcast. It felt like it was broadcast quality, but nothing upgraded or anything like that.
Okay. All right. So, another big development in the last couple of weeks. This one's a big one, massive one. It's the next chapter, I guess, in the Sirova verse, Casio / Port / Estate and Sony court case that's happening. Well, I shouldn't say the court case is happening right now, but the legal scenario that looks like it will evolve into a court case. I think we might hand over to Charles for a little bit, who's here to give us a bit of background on that scenario and why it's important in the Michael Jackson world and what's recently happened.
Okay, so background is 2010, the Michael Jackson estate and Sony released a posthumous album which is entitled Michael, and on that album are 3 songs called Breaking News, Monster, and Keep Your Head Up. These are known as the Casio songs. They are 3 of 12 songs which were sold to Sony and the Michael Jackson estate by the Casio family, and in particular Eddie Casio, who were friends of Michael Jackson, which they claimed were songs that Michael Jackson had recorded in their bathroom through a tube in 2007, and they sold to the estate and Sony as unreleased Michael Jackson material. Upon their release, it was widely considered by fans as well as Michael Jackson's family, friends, and collaborators in the main that these songs were not performed by Michael Jackson, and a lady called Vera Sarova has brought a class action lawsuit against multiple defendants who include Sony Music, the Michael Jackson estate, MJJ Productions, Eddie Casio, James Port, who was the producer on the songs that were given to the estate and Sony, and Angelicson Productions, which is the name of Eddie Casio's production company. Last year, as some people who were listening back then will recall, the estate, the defendants collectively claimed that the lawsuit which had been brought was an affront to their freedom of speech, their right to freedom of speech under the American Constitution. They claimed it was a SLAPP case, SLAPP, strategic lawsuit against public participation, i.e. this is a lawsuit which has been brought strategically to prevent people from exercising their right to free speech. So obviously they have. Well, so what you do when there's a SLAPP, when you allege that a case that has been brought against you is a SLAPP case, what you have to do is file an anti-SLAPP motion, which is a motion where you're saying this lawsuit is a breach of my right to freedom of speech, and therefore it should be tossed out of court. So the defendants have filed this anti-SLAPP case, and some more documents have been published in the last few days, which are the defendants' arguments as to why this is a SLAPP case, why this is a strategic lawsuit against public participation. So I'll take the documents in turn. So the first document is filed jointly by Sony and the Michael Jackson estate. It's signed by lawyer Zia Madaba on behalf of the Sony Music defendant, and it's signed by Howard Weitzman, the Michael Jackson estate's lawyer, on their behalf. The document says that a hearing is due to be held in courtroom 308 at 600 South Commonwealth Avenue, LA, at 2:45 p.m. on March 15th. That will be a telephone hearing, but it will be held in a courtroom, so you might be able to go along and watch if you live in LA and you are that way inclined. At the hearing, the defendants, the documents say, i.e. MJ Estate, Sony, and MJJ Productions, who this particular document is filed on behalf of, will move to kick the case out of court on grounds that the comments they made were protected by their right to freedom of speech. They term that speech, quote, expressive conduct in connection to the distribution of a music album. They say that Vera Sarova cannot demonstrate a probability that she will prevail on the merits of her claims. They also say in the documents that if indeed the case is kicked out of court, they will be pursuing Ms. Sarova for their expenses or their legal bills. The document says, quote, plaintiff Vera Sarova is trying to chill musical expression through protection statutes aimed at false advertising. Her claims arise out of the exercise of speech in connection with a public issue. The defendant's comments at issue are fully protected, non-commercial speech. They're claiming that everything they said about the vocals on those tracks being legitimate, they're claiming it's non-commercial speech. They continue, plaintiff's class action lawsuit has the capacity to inhibit expression in books, music, television, films, comedy, and other performing arts should it proceed. So they're claiming that this is some sort of civil rights issue. If the court rules that they are not allowed to describe these songs as Michael Jackson's songs, then it's some sort of devastating blow for freedom of speech across the entirety of the United States of America. The lawsuit that Ms. Serova has brought, she contests, she has to demonstrate specific instances in which the defendants have described the songs as being performed by Michael Jackson. In that respect, she relies on 4 instances. The first and the most damning, in my opinion, is a statement on the back cover of the album itself, which says that the CD includes 9 previously unreleased vocal tracks performed by Michael Jackson. The second instance she relies on is a statement which was issued by Sony Music, in which it said that it had investigated the origins of the vocals and believed that they were Michael Jackson's. The third is a statement which was issued by Howard Weitzman on behalf of the estate, in which he said he was confident, the estate was confident in the results of its own investigation into the veracity of the vocals. And the fourth instance is a video which was published when the album was released, which described it as, quote, a new album from Michael Jackson. Now, Sony and the estate claim that none of these statements constitute commercial speech. They say that an advertisement in a video is not commercial speech. They say that text on the back cover of a CD is not commercial speech. I mean, try wrapping your head around that one. They claim that they were merely offering an opinion on a matter of public interest, and they say that in US law, offering an opinion on a matter of public interest is protected speech, and therefore, if this lawsuit is allowed to proceed, then it will have chilling effects for freedom of speech in America. They claim, quote, demanding perfect certainty about the nature of a deceased performer's contribution to an expressive work would result in Jackson's posthumous music never being released or in its release being chilled. They cite case law which states that naming the author or creator of an artwork is protected speech, and then they argue that trying to stop them from naming Michael Jackson as the creator of the Casio songs is therefore a breach of their constitutional rights. This is a very interesting issue because, of course, the whole point of the lawsuit is that Michael Jackson is not the creator. So the point of the lawsuit is that this was a false advertisement, but the estate's response is that under US law, they have an absolute right to name Michael Jackson as the creator of the music. I mean, the whole thing is mind-boggling, really. If they win on this argument, I mean, it's just extremely disturbing, in my opinion. So they then after all of this, they offer a second argument in the documents where they claim, quote, neither the estate nor Sony Music claimed Michael Jackson performed lead vocals to the press. Plaintiff attempts to attribute to these defendants a statement of fact they did not make. Neither said that Jackson performed the Casio tracks. Rather, Sony and the estate said they performed an investigation and were confident in their opinion that it was Jackson performing. By their nature, they are non-actionable opinions. Jackson died, and none of the defendants was in a position to have actual knowledge, nor did they represent that they did. So their first argument is that they were offering merely an opinion on a matter of public interest, which is protected speech. And then their second argument is that actually we never said Michael Jackson was the performer anyway. Of course, this would appear to be disputed by the fact that the back of the CD says that the CD contains 9 vocal performances by Michael Jackson. So they claim that the video advert cannot be used because it referred to the album as a whole and not to the Casio tracks specifically. They go on to say, quote, It is undisputed that at least 7 out of the 10 songs on the album contained vocal tracks performed by Michael Jackson. Accordingly, there is nothing false nor deceptive about a statement characterizing Michael as a Michael Jackson album. No reasonable consumer would understand such a statement to mean that Jackson performed every portion of every vocal track for every song on a 10-song album. So now they're saying, even if the songs are fake, it doesn't matter because 7 of them are real. That's my reading of that quote.
I get that on artists' albums, singers other than the artist might perform background vocals. So I kind of get where they're going with that, but it still doesn't make sense to me.
No, because we're talking about lead vocals, and we're not only talking about lead vocals, but we're talking about lead vocals which is clearly inferred from the back of the CD are performed by Michael Jackson. It says this album contains 9 previously unreleased Michael Jackson vocals. So a hefty proportion of their argument in these documents appears to me to be directly undermined by the very words on the back of the CD cover. Now I'll move to the documents which have been filed for Eddie Casio, James Port and Angelickson. They basically parrot the same argument. They say their speech was non-commercial because it was protected in law, because it was an opinion on a matter of public interest. In defining public interest, they state that Michael Jackson's status as the world's biggest pop star made it a matter of public interest, as did the fact that he was the highest earning dead celebrity in the world. They say, quote, in addition, as a focus of controversy, Jackson's Wikipedia page is the 5th most edited of all time, surpassing the Catholic Church, Jesus Christ, and Adolf Hitler. Consequently, the Angelickson defendants' statements that Jackson sang lead vocals on the Casio tracks were certainly about a person in the public eye. Moreover, the Angelickson defendants' purported statements were about a matter of public interest, as controversy has surrounded the Casio tracks since the inception of the album. Even before the song's release, numerous people familiar with Michael Jackson's voice disputed the authenticity of the Casio tracks, including Michael Jackson's mother, son, daughter, 3 nephews, 3 brothers, and 2 former producers. This is their own court document. So that what they're actually saying, they're saying the fact that the vocals appear to be fake resulted in a controversy. Because there was a controversy, that made it a matter of public interest. And because it was a matter of public interest, we are protected in law in our statements that Michael Jackson's the vocalist, because that's an opinion on a matter of public interest. So they're actually arguing that the fact that the people believe the songs are fake means they shouldn't be able to be sued about the songs being fake, which is just the most bizarre argument I've ever heard. Then they go on to, they parrot Sony in the States argument again about naming the creators of artworks. And then they argue basically that because they are named as artists who are involved in the creation of this artwork, they are protected in themselves as well. So effectively, they're arguing that because they've been named as complicit in the creation of a fraudulent artwork, that should preclude them from being able to be sued for then duping people into buying the fraudulent artwork by advertising it. So this, I mean, these documents are just mind-bending. As I say, if this comes to court and they win on the basis of this argument, I will be extremely disturbed. Basically, they're making an argument that anybody could record a fake song, and existing statutes in the American Constitution would prevent them from ever being held to account for it.
Agreed. Thank you for that awesome summary, Charles. We really appreciate it. I'm interested, like, obviously Q and I, we've given our opinions a lot on this topic on the show in previous episodes, and I've certainly got some pretty strong opinions about these new documents as well. But I'd like to know, Andy, what you think about this development.
Yeah, I read the documents as well and found it interesting what their argument was. I think the distinction that needs to be drawn, and unfortunately it's a distinction that always happens, but these are legal arguments. They're not necessarily presenting proof. So I think what I got, the gist of the argument was that their opinions about it being Michael uttered through, on the Oprah show, through press releases, et cetera, were opinions, and therefore opinions cannot be seen as being commercial for commercial purposes. as Charles said, it's all pretty, mind-bending about the way that they're seeming to worm their way around. Well, these songs are undisputed, so therefore it is a Michael album, whereas these 3 songs in question, whatever. I mean, it just seems, I think in the fan community, whichever side you're on, whether you believe it's 100% Michael, whether you believe it's not Michael at all, I think it needs to be resolved. And I applaud people in the fan community actually taking this step and pursuing it and holding them accountable to say, look, there's obviously been some question about the validity of the vocals, and surely that should be the first red flag. I've heard tracks in development. I've heard a track that was very similar to Monster that had Michael's vocals on it, uttering the words monster in a similar phrasing and things like that. So, there's room in either way in terms of, was it something Michael was working on but didn't record? Was it something, it just gets down to a myriad of differing opinions and hopefully what this case resolves is tangible evidential proof that says, on either party, on either side, saying, yep, this is definitely not Michael's vocals, or yes, this is definitely Michael's vocals because here are, 3 work products in process, or here is what we did to it, a demonstration of how we, manipulated the vocal or whatever. But yeah, I think it's, unfortunately a dark chapter, and, I think if everybody had their time over, you would hope, the Michael album would just be an album minus those 3 songs. Just hopefully we get a clear resolution on this, and I hope it comes down to being fact rather than just being, manipulation of legal arguments to try to avoid actually addressing the issue.
I'm really looking forward to that. If it does go to trial, that we see people on the stand that were involved in this album and the creation of the album and the recording of the songs that we have on it, so that we can hear firsthand from these people what happened during the recording and the process and the conception process of the songs. It's going to be fascinating to learn a lot about it. It was interesting to hear you say before about the version of Monster that you'd heard that had Michael Jackson singing on it. Without going into too much detail that's might get me into trouble, I will say that there's songs on that album, in my opinion, that are based on songs that Michael recorded or was working on in the late 2000s.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be similarities between what I've heard and the final product. Yeah. Now, whether there's manipulation at play or whether there's actual recordings, that's what this case hopefully will point out. What is interesting, I think, though, is their argument kind of falls flat in their saying that they're just offering an opinion, and therefore it's on a non-commercial, whatever the way that they're trying to get around it. But surely one could argue that if, based on them saying, yes, our research has shown that it is 100% Michael Jackson on these songs, which is what the press releases were seen to be doing. And the press releases came out a month before, by their own admission, a month before the release of the Michael album. Then surely if you purchased the album based on that opinion being presented as fact, then that's when it becomes a commercial an issue. I don't know whether legally that is correct, but that just seems to, as the layperson, be my take on it. That if you're saying, this album contains, Michael Jackson previous unheard recordings, that's what you expect when you purchase it.
Exactly. There would be. I am 100% certain that people that looked at the back of that album cover before they bought it in a record store, there's a very high chance they would have been influenced by the words on that album to buy the album. If I was I'm a hardcore Michael Jackson fan, so I'm a little bit different. But if I was walking into a shop and I didn't know much about the artist, but I'd heard there was a posthumous album out by them, I would be comforted by the words on the back of that CD saying that it was completely them, and I would probably buy it because of that. That's commercial speech, in my opinion. Or commercial... What was it called, Charles? They're saying it's not commercial speech.
They're saying it's non-commercial speech. And they're raising... one of the examples they raise is a case involving Lance Armstrong, the cyclist, where somebody tried to sue an author because somewhere on their book jacket it described Lance Armstrong as having won the Tour de France, whereas he had since been discredited, and it had turned out that he had been using drugs, and therefore his title had been stripped. So they said it was false advertising. I've read through the documents. They don't seem to be citing any case law which is directly comparable to the situation that exists here. So what you have here is a lawsuit which says these songs are not performed by Michael Jackson, and the claim that they are performed by Michael Jackson is a lie. And then you have the defendants responding and saying, we are absolutely entitled to list the author of an artwork under the American Constitution. Now, well, yes, you are. Of course you are. But the way that they're manipulating the argument would mean that it was legal to counterfeit. Essentially, they're saying, if they're making the argument that even if it's not Michael Jackson, we're allowed to say that it is, because it's only an opinion and it's non-commercial speech, that would mean that I could release a Michael Jackson album tomorrow, and it could just be, me banging a dish with a wooden spoon. It means that anyone could, if they're saying anyone has the right to list anyone as an artist on an artwork, that surely can't be right. And if that is what the law says, then the law is insane. But then again, the law sometimes is insane. So when it comes to these things, I never make any assumptions. To me, it would be crazy if this lawsuit was thrown out on the basis of the comments which are made in these documents. But at the same time, I see decisions made in courtrooms all the time, which to me are crazy. But that's just the way the law is written.
I'm actually just trying to find on the internet the credits for breaking news example. I thought that there was actually someone else credited in that track, at least anyway.
Yeah, James Port is credited in backing vocals, I believe.
Okay, and it specifically says backing vocals.
Well, yeah, I believe so. I believe it says backing vocals, Michael Jackson, James Port. I don't have the liner notes in front of me, but from memory, that's what it said.
Okay. Because they also even credited Dave Grohl on the album for playing guitar, and he came out quite angrily and said, well, that's really pissed me off because I actually did record
drums.
My apologies. Drums for the Lenny Kravitz track on that album, and they never used it at all, and then they still credited him for it. So the credits are all over the shop.
Yeah, look, and that's not the first time that there's been liner notes that have made errors one way or the other, because as Brad Sundberg has mentioned recently, liner notes are generally written in the process of the actual recording. So sometimes liner notes will go out with wrong lyrics because the artist changed the lyrics by the time they get down to finishing their final pass on vocals, but the liner notes have been written, 3 weeks beforehand. So liner note errors aren't uncommon, but I think what it goes to is, whether or not they're, pushing Dave Grohl as being a featured artist on it, when under everyone's, knowledge, Dave Grohl's come out and said, no, that's not me. I did record a drum snare and I recorded some drums and whatever, but that's not me on the track.
I'm just looking at the personnel now on Wikipedia, and I know it's Wikipedia, and I'm not sure it's exactly what's on the liner notes for the Michael album, but it says that Michael Jackson wrote the song with Eddie Casio and James Port. It says that he produced the song with Teddy Riley and Angelicson. And it says that he sung background vocals with James Port, but it doesn't say anything about lead vocals.
That's what I was trying to remember, and I couldn't because it's been many, many years since I peeked at the liner notes in a record shop, that it doesn't actually have credits for lead vocals.
Now, is that across the board on all songs or just those three?
Well, I'm just on the breaking news Wikipedia page.
Right.
I'd have to go to the other ones to see that.
I just always thought it was odd that it never had a credit for lead vocals.
Yeah.
Yeah, and an argument would be that liner notes are after purchase, so they're not actually a point of encouraging purchase. Whereas what's written on the back of the CD, one could argue, does encourage purchase.
Yeah, I think that if this does progress past the anti-slap lawsuit stage and go to trial, if they're so certain, then just put evidence out, which they've never, ever, ever, ever done. And the statement they had about producers or people in that room, people have come out in that they said, oh yeah, they all said it was Michael. People have come out since then and said, we never said that at all. People in that room said that no, it wasn't the case. So like that's the only evidence they've really submitted ever, and even that has been discredited. They've never given any other evidence at all, in my opinion, because there is none.
They've never produced a single piece of evidence which connects Michael Jackson to any of these songs. Not one handwritten lyric, not one outtake vocal or demo or dictaphone recording, not a photograph, not a video, nothing. There is nothing which connects Michael Jackson to a single one of the 12 Casio songs, even though Frank Casio's friend Roger Friedman insisted that evidence was to be released to the public. It never was released to the public. And I'm aware of ongoing investigations, which I'm not involved in, by the way, into these songs. And I am given to understand that there is a mounting case which demonstrates that Michael Jackson had no involvement in these songs ever, and that there is direct proof, actually, which counters the argument that he was involved. And I look forward to that hopefully being made public during the case, if it comes to trial. It's no secret that forensic audio tests have been conducted in this case, and I look forward to the results of those tests being made public at some stage.
Because the other results never were made public.
Exactly, and why wouldn't you? And when the estate was questioned about why they didn't release the results of those tests, they made some crazy comment about because it's not fair to put the testers' names into the public domain or something, even though these are people who have been specifically contracted to do that test in probably the most high-profile dispute ever over the authenticity of a vocal. You know, that was a crazy argument to make. It's not fair to drag the tester into the public sphere. The fact is they were losing money hand over fist. I mean, that album should have been one of the biggest albums of the year. You know, the first posthumous Michael Jackson album, riding the crest of the wave of that massive resurgence in popularity after he passed away. And that album ended up in bargain bins within weeks of being released because nobody was buying it. It charted terribly. It fell immediately out of view, and they couldn't give it away. It was sitting in the bargain bin at, a quarter of its original price, and still people were not buying it. All they had to do was release one piece of evidence. All they had to do was release the results of those tests, and they could have averted all of that. And we were told that the Oprah interview would include evidence. We would see the proof of Michael Jackson's involvement in these songs, and it didn't happen. You have to ask yourselves, is it possible that Michael Jackson could record 12 songs and there would be no evidence of it in existence? And if there is evidence in existence, then why would they not release it? The whole thing makes no sense.
The only thing they showed in the Oprah interview was a photograph from that period of time with a microphone stand or something with a pillow at the bottom of it, and Michael wasn't even in the photo.
Exactly, and that could have been taken anytime.
Anytime. There's no, yeah.
Yeah.
The strongest evidence they've got, it's not even evidence, but the strongest thing that they've got that they didn't even mention in the Oprah interview is that Michael did actually record legitimate songs with Eddie Casio. For example, the keys on For All Time and the vocals in Wanna Be Startin' Something 2008. He recorded those with Eddie Casio and released them in his lifetime.
Yeah, and they sounded like Michael Jackson, funnily enough.
Funny that.
Okay, are we ready to move on?
Indeed. I just wanted to say I liked your little video you put up during the break, Jamon.
Video?
Yeah. When you were browsing in JB Hi-Fi.
Yeah, it's kind of a little tradition of mine to hide that album behind other artists.
Yeah, I think I do the same. I hide it far further away than what you do, which is a real shame because there is actually truly some incredible songs on that album, which it's a real shame that they've been lost and buried in this self-inflicted controversy, which could have been completely avoided. I remember hearing Behind the Mask, which I do really wish I'd heard the original before it was overproduced for this release, but that had me in absolute mess of tears because the vocals on it were so incredible. So yeah, it's a real shame that those other songs are lost, but yeah, next time I'll continue my little tradition of moving and hiding the album.
So thank you very much, Charles, for giving us an update on the latest court documents. You do a far better job of unpacking them than that I could ever do, so thank you very much. We look forward to you coming back on the show when we get more documents coming through regarding the Casio case. And if people want to find those documents to read them themselves, all you have to do is go to themjcast.com/Casio case, and you'll find all the documents there ready for you to engage with and learn from.
Thanks for your discussion there, guys. Thanks for sharing your thoughts as well, Andy.
No dramas.
And of course, a big thank you to Vera, who actually started this whole case against the tracks. She's very brave, and my hat's off to Vera. Thank you.
Dum dum da dee doo da dee doo doo. Dum dum da dee doo da dee doo. Dum dum da dee doo da dee doo doo. Dum dum da dee doo da dee doo. They told him, don't you ever come around here. Don't wanna see your face, you better disappear. The fire's in their eyes and their voice surrounding me. So beat it, just beat it, just beat it, just beat it. You better run, you better do what you can. Don't wanna see no problem, be a macho man. You wanna be touched, better do what you can. So beat it, just beat it. But you wanna be bad, beat it, beat it, beat it. No one wants to be defeated. Show me how funky strong is your fight. It doesn't matter who's strong, you're right. Just beat it.
So Dangerous tour second leg rehearsals have leaked. Thank you, MJ Beats. They're so good to us, aren't they?
Oh, they give us a lot.
Where the hell is this stuff coming from?
There was rumours before Christmas that there was some dude who worked for Michael who had all this stuff on VHS or something, and then someone found him in his warehouse after he passed away or something. I don't know how true any of that is. But MJ Beats has certainly got their hands on a lot of footage, because we saw before Christmas at least 10 different things leaked, video and audio, and now we've got a few more just in the last 7 days.
So what's this second leg tour rehearsal orange shirt leak, Jamon?
Well, the fans seem to be classifying these different Dangerous tour rehearsals by the colour shirt that he's wearing. So you can see the orange shirt rehearsal and the green shirt rehearsal. And the second leg rehearsals where Michael's wearing an orange shirt is a collection of videos of Michael rehearsing songs. He's rehearsing Dangerous actually multiple times in the video. It's an interesting watch. He doesn't seem 100% in it. Like, he's not singing all out at all. He's stepping through the moves. It looks like a very sort of typical sort of Michael Jackson rehearsal where he's not giving it everything, but he's more, I think it's blocking camera angles, getting the dancers learning the choreography, getting a feel for the staging and everything. So, yeah, it's an interesting watch. It's kind of cool to hear Michael singing Dangerous rather than lip syncing it. But these what's been dubbed as the orange shirt Dangerous rehearsals are by far the least impressive of the leaks that have happened in the last few days, but still definitely interesting to watch in my opinion.
Who else has had a chance to see it? I have been working crazy flat chat hours this week, so I haven't even had a chance to barely look at these leaks.
Yeah, I managed to catch it. Yeah, I agree. There's other leaks that have come in the last couple of days that are potentially more entertaining and more impressive seeing Michael up there. These ones are interesting just to see him kind of pace through Dangerous and see how it was going to be incorporated into the show. But yeah, it's not necessarily him at his finest. But then again, it is rehearsals, and as we know, you don't necessarily run for the 100 meters every time you're for the Olympic record, every time you go out to race. you do it when it matters. So it's interesting to get an insight in the creative process, and but there are some other leaks that have come out that I think are more entertaining.
So speaking of that, that would probably be the green shirt rehearsal?
Yeah, the green shirt rehearsal. And Andy might be able to tell us a little bit more about this. I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty sure it's from roughly the same period that, like, you know, the footage that's already out there that's been out for years that you could buy on DVD from MJ DVD sites back in the day of the Dangerous Tour rehearsals where he is wearing that green shirt and performing at Neverland Valley Ranch. I think they set the stage up there for him to practice there. And I don't know if it's from exactly that same rehearsal period of time or even the same rehearsals, but it is, definitely far more impressive than the orange shirt rehearsals. Andy, do you know if there's a connection between those old rehearsals that we've seen and this new leak?
Yeah, so the previous leak was known as Tape 1, and this, the green shirt, I guess, is known now as Tape 2. Which came before which? I mean, it would seem that Tape 2 was latter, but whether it was the day later or the afternoon of, there's definitely certain similarities between the two performances in terms of set list and things like that. What is, for me, fantastic is you're getting moments of, seeing songs rehearsed for Dangerous that didn't necessarily make its way through all the performances. So you're seeing Bad being performed, which I believe Michael actually did do at the Wembley shows in the UK. But you're hearing Michael with live vocals, and it's he's in good spirits. He's really getting into the tracks. He's singing a lot of the songs which didn't end up being live during the actual tour. Live. So you're getting to hear what they would have sounded like night after night had he gone that route of doing live vocal performances for every song on every night. Really worth something to check out, especially for Bad, for Black or White, and for Man in the Mirror.
And that diagonal stage.
It's out of control.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Like, I don't know. Obviously, all the band were walking up it and kind of heading off. And to me, it kind of reminded me a little bit of the ending of This Is It with MJ Air. But yeah, I don't know what the concept was in terms of the stage being angled up and everyone kind of trudging up that hill to kind of exit stage left. But obviously that was quickly shunted aside, and Rocket Man was kind of given the all clear. So just an interesting way of, again, seeing how they put the show together, how they looked at how they could use the stage a little bit more dynamically and see what it would give to the performance.
And it looks like maybe it's imminent that we might get the full Oslo show soon. There's been a few leaks from that.
So MJ Beats has been slowly leaking those out song by song, and Lavelle Smith Jr. has been a big supporter of those videos coming out, sharing a lot of them on his Instagram account, which is getting a lot of attention. It's an interesting show. I actually think it's probably... it's definitely... an odd show to watch for two reasons, I think. Number one is that it's in broad daylight, the whole show. So it's really weird watching a Michael Jackson concert with full daylight.
That blows my mind.
For the whole time. It's actually like watching him at a festival rather than like one of his own shows.
Or the Super Bowl.
Yeah, or the Super Bowl. And the stage is really weird. Like, it's a much smaller version of the Dangerous Tour stage than what he'd used at Bucharest. It's actually got like open sides, and you can see like out the distance of the field where he was performing, or the stadium, through the stage. It's a very pared back, smaller looking stage. I think that must have been to do with logistical requirements, because we know that the Oslo show had 35,000 people watching, so it wasn't like a small show in terms of number of people there, but the logistics must have meant that they had to use that smaller stage. The other weird thing about it I found was that there's this odd dichotomy of Michael dancing brilliantly to the point where, I know I was talking with Damien Shields yesterday about this, friend of the show, Damien Shields, and he was saying that he thought that it might even be some of the best dancing that he'd ever seen Michael do. How sharp the moves were, just how finely tuned those moves were throughout the entire show. And he's so correct when you watch it. Michael is physically on fire during the Oslo show. But the vocals are some of the worst I've heard him ever give throughout a show. I'm going to rephrase that. Not the vocals. The music. like whoever's in charge of his mic volume and whoever's in charge of when backing tracks come in to be played for songs is like, I'm pretty sure they got yelled at that night or fired, because it is really bad. Like human nature, the backing audio comes in like a second or 2 seconds after it's meant to, and then Michael has to extend this move out that he usually does for a little bit and then kind of starts laughing that he has to do it longer. He's at some points during the show, and you got to remember, this is in front of 35,000 people. Michael Jackson is pointing at the sound desk, telling them to raise the audio up, and at one point actually yells "hey" at the guy in charge of the sound to make sure his mic goes up louder. So in terms of audio, it's a really scattershot show, and it's not a professional. Well, the songs that I've seen anyway are not on the same level of professionalism that you see in other Michael Jackson shows. But visually, his dancing is maybe better than I've ever seen him dance before. So yeah, it's an interesting show to watch. Definitely something that fans will want to engage with. Charles, have you seen any of these leaks at all?
Yeah, I've flicked through all of them. I think the most interesting by far is the green shirt rehearsal. It's nice to hear him singing the songs live. He seems to me in this tape 2 to be going a little harder than he was in tape 1. Certainly vocally, he seems to be really putting in a lot of effort, and that's nice to watch. In terms of the show, I mean, I've never been a Dangerous Tour fan. I mean, for me, Michael, the genius performer, was something which existed from Destiny to Bad. And after that, it fell off a cliff for me, personally. I have a strong aversion to lip syncing. I think it should be illegal. And I think it should be illegal, or legal only if you prominently advertise it at every ticket vendor, point of sale, on every poster, every TV advert, every website. It should be prominently signposted. I'm massively opposed to lip syncing, and for me that kills the Dangerous Tour immediately. But also, I mean, when you consider that it was like 4 years between the last Bad Tour show and the first Dangerous show, to me, he just looks like he's aged about 10 years, both visually and in terms of his performance. I think there's no spontaneity, really. I mean, there's little bits in certain shows, but really, if you look at the level of spontaneity on the Bad Tour, and just if you look at how much fun he seems to be having on the Bad Tour, he smiles a lot, he laughs a lot, he jokes around with the band and the crew. He just seems to be having a really good time. And by the Dangerous show, that's all gone. It's like this... It's almost like a music box where you just wind it up and then it does the same thing every night with almost no interaction, no deviation, no spontaneity. And for me, a lot of the fun of a live performance comes from being able to see that the artist is enjoying what they're doing. And I think that basically disappeared from Michael Jackson's performances from the Dangerous Tour onwards. I mean, it's an interesting watch, the Oslo show, just because it is so fraught with these cock-ups, just cock-up after cock-up in terms of audio. But I would say that is what happens, or that is the risk that you run when you start relying on pre-records and lip-syncing. You know, you're reliant on that technology working, because otherwise you look like a Wally. You know, this doesn't happen. That doesn't happen if you play fully live with a band. For me, if that's not what you're doing, then I'm just not really interested as a live music fan. If it's not fully live with a band, then I'm not buying a ticket. So for me, the rehearsals are the gem here. The green shirt rehearsal, I really enjoyed that, but the gig, I'm not interested.
Thank you, Charles.
Cool. All right. So, yeah, there's a whole bunch of leaks that have come out. If you want to grab these leaks, they're really easy to find. You can go to the MJ Beats Facebook page. They're all catalogued there and on their YouTube channel. Or alternatively, just go to the mjcast.com, and in the show notes for episode 24, you'll find links to all of these YouTube leaks where you can watch the Dangerous rehearsals, both versions, and the Dangerous tour in Oslo. And we'll be sure to update you guys with any further Michael Jackson leaks in upcoming episodes as well. Just quickly before we move on to our onto our discussion, our main discussion topic of the episode, there is a book coming out soon. It's called The Dangerous Philosophies of Michael Jackson. It's already available for pre-order. It looks like an excellent book. It's all about Michael Jackson's artistry. It's actually written by a fellow podcaster, Elizabeth Amisu, who also puts out the Michael Jackson's Dream Lives On podcast in connection with the Michael Jackson Academia Studies website. Looks like a really good book. It's a collection of 21 academic essays on a range of topics. It's coming out August 28th. It takes a sophisticated, and I'm quoting here from their website, but it takes a sophisticated academic approach to understanding Jackson's art and life, providing insights into his entire body of work from a perspective never before available outside of music and culture journals. I'm really excited about this book. We're going to cover it a little bit more in depth as we move closer towards its release at the end of the year. But I personally just think the more books that are out there on Michael's art, the better. And Andy, I'd probably hazard a guess that you'd agree with that.
Yeah. I think, books of this quality where it's kind of more of an academic study and looking at getting into the guts of the actual artistry, I think are books that we need. We've had enough of the Sullivans and the likes who are, rehashing the stories that either we know or that the tabloids told us. So it's good to read substantive works that are about the art.
Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting to see that Elizabeth is going to be talking more than just about the music. She's going to be discussing the costumes, clothing, poetry, and all of his other works as well. So it should be very, very interesting. Q, you might probably want to buy this one as well, I guess, to add to your book collection.
Oh my God, it's growing so much.
Yeah.
I even got some off Mum and Dad for Christmas, which I hadn't actually planned to buy myself. But then they got them for me. I was like, okay, now I've got no more shelf space on my bookshelves.
Yeah. I think it looks pretty cool. I'm hoping actually we can get Elizabeth on the show at some point where we might do a special or something about this.
Yeah, I've got to listen to the new episode of their podcast yet.
Yeah, it's a great podcast.
I enjoyed the first one.
Yeah, this new one, episode 3, it's longer than what they've done before. It's 40 minutes long, and they actually talk all about what Michael Jackson Academia Studies actually is as a concept, which is fascinating to learn about.
Cool. So that's on iTunes if you guys want to go and have a look for that. And we'll also put a link in the show notes.
From Michael Jackson. Off the Wall features 5 hit singles. Off the Wall. Yes, it's more of that Michael Jackson magic. Off the Wall. Another thriller from Michael Jackson.
Hey, I'm Lavelle Smith Jr. Thanks for joining us on the MJCast.
So who's had a chance to watch the Spike Lee Off the Wall documentary?
Yeah.
You sound so enthusiastic about it, Charles.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen it and I liked it.
Yeah, I didn't mind it.
I thought it was really cool.
It was good, but it wasn't great.
Yeah. Definitely wasn't a 5-star affair.
Something that had huge, massive, incredibly huge potential, and we got a taste, really.
Yeah, it was similar to Bad 25, I thought, like in structure and format. Look, I'll admit, I walked away from it feeling very differently to what I thought I was going to. I was going into it with a really low expectations. I just thought it was just going to be a little bit of footage, not much else. But I was really surprised with the amount of footage they had in there from, the time periods they were dealing with. really good high quality footage of Michael in different interviews and performances and things like that. So I was kind of excited about that, and I was excited how positive it was, and I walked away feeling very positive about the documentary as a whole. But like you, Q, I thought that it had big potential that it didn't meet, and that came down to, for me, the fact that even though they were doing these incredible things like returning to the Triumph Tour very frequently and returning to that beautiful Havenhurst interview that I'd never seen before with Michael, Spike Lee just has this thing where he just relies way too heavily on talking heads, I found.
I don't mind talking heads. I think in this documentary, it was the amount of talking heads. Like the group of people... You go.
I said, and not just David Byrne.
Yeah.
From Talking Heads. Anyway, move on.
No, exactly.
Oh my God, I can't believe I was late for the party on that one. Oh my God.
See, I'm with all these highbrow people and I'm like, what? Anyway, I just think like have talking heads and relevant ones, but there was just like, a roster of like 50 of them?
Yes, too many.
Too many. Just have like 4 and 5 maybe, and then skip to them when you need it. But they had so many, and the editing of them, it was like flash, 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 flash between all these different talking heads. It was like, oh my God, I'm getting dizzy from all these different people and trying to remember who they all are. And, oh, okay, there's Rosie Perez, an actress, and John Leguizamo, or that guy, and Kobe Bryant. There was so many, and I'm like, are these people really relevant? Like, seriously, like Jenkins said, give me Alicia Keys.
But even that, she's not, like, for me, if I was creating a documentary, and I'm a big fan of documentaries, I would only ever really include people that were historically connected to what we were talking about. So, like, anyone, the songwriters on Off the Wall, the producers, the people who worked with Michael, just people integral to that era that were involved. I get the inspiration thing and how there's a kind of a connection there, but I don't know. And where possible as well, if you have to use talking heads, in my opinion, use talking heads like archival footage from the time, so it puts the viewer right back in the moment when it was happening.
I was so happy to see like Gamble and Huff.
Yeah, that was great. Those sort of things were cool. My other problem with it wasn't just the talking heads. I don't like the song by song format. I don't think it works. It just is not... like the first half of the documentary to me was really strong. The whole like from Jackson 5 to, to Off the Wall period. Like that was documented really well. I thought it had a great narrative thread running through it of Michael wanting to kind of break out and explore his creativity independently. That was excellent. And then it just felt like Spike got trapped and locked into this song by song routine that was with Bad 25 as well, and it just doesn't suit it to me because not every song's worthy of having a section. Like Girlfriend was in there for like 30 seconds or something, and it's like he got trapped into using this format. I thought it would have been better if there was a stronger narrative thread in there about Michael expanding creatively, or maybe, the tour, or having to balance his work with the brothers and the solo stuff with the tour. And, I don't know. I just didn't like the format of the track-by-track thing as well. But that's me.
I think it's difficult. I mean, look, I can understand why he's kind of wedded to that, because when you're dealing with an album in particular, you're kind of having to throw that narrative of the album as it's, here's track 1, here's track 2, here's track 3. So I get that. For me, there were lost opportunities, as you say. I either pull archival footage, and that's what they had to do, obviously, with Quincy. It was great to see Bruce Swedien there. I know that Spike's first edit of this, I think, went for over 2 hours, and then it got trimmed down to like 90 minutes.
Which is a shame, I think. Huge shame.
Yeah, but not uncommon for documentary films. But definitely a shame, and you would hope that, that's what the Blu-ray should have. There are opportunities, with Girlfriend, with It's the Falling in Love, with Stevie talking about I Can't Help It, that seemed like they got really truncated because there wasn't necessarily Michael performing the song, or there wasn't Michael, talking about the song himself. I would have loved to have heard from Paul McCartney talking about Girlfriend and how he recorded it, London Town, and how it contrasts to Michael's take on it. For me, I'm always a big fan of, I don't know whether you guys know the Classic Albums documentary series that came out in the kind of mid-90s to early 2000s. A similar format where they would take a great album and sit with the producers at the mixing console and basically go track by track. So they were playing you stuff that didn't make the mix. They were playing you stuff that you didn't really know was highlighted. And to me, that's a perfect way to actually explore an album. This format, I think they took the lessons from Bad 25 and definitely improved on it, but it's not necessarily potentially the best representation that there could have been of this album. But having said that, I know as a fan, we will always have our own point of view about how things should be done or how I would do it. If I was going to do a documentary, I would do it this way. Spike has his own structure and is kind of, wedded to that. And within those confines, did a decent job.
He locked himself, I think, into as well only using material from Off the Wall or before of Michael Jackson. There's great footage of Michael from after 1979 talking about the songs on that album or even performing them. So, for example, and I'm not going to mention the history tour Off the Wall section, that should definitely not ever be shown on film ever. But the part of This Is It, where Michael's actually doing a quick vocal rendition in rehearsal of Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. That would have been awesome in there. And I get that he wanted to keep it in the context of the late 70s, but there was opportunities to expand on those songs with Michael Jackson himself that Spike missed.
Charles?
Okay, well...
here we go, everyone.
Strap yourselves in.
Well, I mean, I'm coming at this... I'm tackling this from two perspectives. One, I'm tackling it as a fan, and the other is I'm tackling it as a journalist. And as somebody who, although I've not gone into it professionally, I did study video journalism at university. And so some of the points I'll make are kind of technical points, but to me they just scream out at me. But I think you can divide this film into two sections, and the two sections are the contemporaneous footage, a lot of which was brand new. Nobody's ever seen it before, like that footage of Michael at Havenhurst, and a lot of the tour footage, which was magnificent. And then on the other hand, you have Spike's work, which kind of was like padding, and in many cases it just really did not justify its own inclusion in the documentary, I didn't think. And when I watch this, I'm watching it thinking this is Spike Lee, who created When the Levees Broke, which is like one of the most respected and acclaimed documentaries of modern times. So, all about Katrina. And, that was an incredible piece of work. I actually have here in my house a signed poster. I'm a huge fan of Spike Lee's, but these documentaries he's doing with the estate, I'm just not enthralled by. I mean, Bad, I thought was a catastrophe. Bad 25, the documentary, I thought it was hideous, an absolute disaster, pretty much from start to finish. This is not as bad. I mean, it's not as bad as bad. It's shorter, but I think it suffers not only as has been already mentioned from too many talking heads, but it's about the quality of the material that those talking heads are providing, and in many cases, I just didn't feel they contributed anything of value to the documentary. So I'm watching this and I'm going, so you, Spike Lee, have got in your hands, at your fingertips, something which Michael Jackson fans would give their right arm for, which is never before seen footage of Michael Jackson performing live on stage. And you keep cutting away from this incredible discovery to offer us triviality. And I've already mentioned it on Twitter, but the moment that was in the teaser clip, where you've got this footage of Michael Jackson at his most vibrant, Michael Jackson as he's just emerged as the Michael Jackson that we come to know, where he's finding his identity as a dancer and as a live performer, performing Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, this incredible footage. Nobody's ever seen this footage before. And then you cut away from that footage to Questlove saying, I thought he was saying forks. And you go, where is the benefit in that? What is that contributing to this documentary? It's contributing nothing. It's triviality, and almost everything that was contributed by certain talking heads in the documentary was rubbish. It was of no value, no journalistic value. It did not tell us anything. It told us nothing. What you had really was a parade of people who were all saying the same thing on a loop. So you're showing this footage of Michael Jackson, then you cut to The Weeknd, and what he's basically saying is Michael Jackson's really good. And then you show a little bit more clip, and then you cut back to Kobe Bryant, and he says Michael Jackson is really good. And then you cut away, and then you cut back again, and you cut back to Questlove, and he's going, Michael Jackson, man, he was really good. And, you know, it's just the same thing on a loop. They're saying it in a slightly different way. But what is the point of that? It's completely superficial. That was my problem with this documentary, really, is it's so superficial. You've got an hour and a half documentary, and probably half an hour of that documentary is flushed down the toilet. It's nothing. It's just an endless feedback loop of these minor celebrities just saying, yeah, Michael Jackson's really good. And it seemed like the objective was to get as many famous people's names into the press release as possible. That was the way it felt for me. What did Rosie Perez add to that documentary? Nothing. Nothing. She told us nothing about the album. She told us nothing about the impact of the album. All she spoke about in pretty much every clip was the fact that she found Michael Jackson attractive. And so what? It's just rubbish. So, and there was another issue that I had as well, which is that Spike Lee just lets people just talk shit, and he doesn't challenge them. So, for instance, you have Berry Gordy. At one point, Berry Gordy says of Michael Jackson at Motown, he was not at all concerned about the work. So he's talking about the amount of work that Michael Jackson did as a kid at Motown. He was not at all concerned about the work. That's the direct quote from Berry Gordy. Well, how many interviews have you seen Michael Jackson give where he says, I would be in the recording studio and I was crying, and the reason I was crying was because I was looking out of the window and I could see all the kids playing in the park across the road. So we know from Michael Jackson that that's bullshit. But why is Spike Lee including it in his film? I don't get it. I don't get what the point of that is. It's rubbish. It's rubbish journalism. It's crap. And the other thing I really didn't like was the Eddie Murphy thing. She's Out of My Life is a fantastic song, and it felt like he was just taking the piss out of it with that Eddie Murphy stuff. I thought that contributed nothing other than to essentially make fun of Michael Jackson. So I very much enjoyed the contemporaneous footage that we'd not seen before. I love that Haven Hurst stuff. And I loved that footage, the live performance footage. Incredible. The footage of Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Working Day and Night. And there was another song as well where I was watching. I was just thinking, this is unbelievable. They need to put this out on DVD. And that's the other thing that's galling, really, is the fact that they're putting out this documentary, which is like largely rubbish. And no, it's not largely rubbish. It's about 33% rubbish. And then the stuff that's actually good, they could have just released on its own without making a documentary. So it's also a waste of time. So my message to Sony and the Michael Jackson estate is, I don't want the documentary. I want the concert. Please, can we have the concert on DVD? Because it is of a lot more value, in my opinion.
The Eddie Murphy thing, I understand when they referenced it, and I sort of thought that was cool how they referenced it, but it went on far too long, and the way it ended, it did sort of slightly like leave a bad taste. Didn't seem at the end, the way they edited it just didn't seem very respectful in a way. They just dragged that out for far too long, when I would rather have just watched the tiny, oh yeah, Eddie Murphy acknowledged, and used this in his routine, and it was hilarious. But then show Michael singing that track on tour, or in the studio, or in a video, or whatever instead.
Yeah. I totally
How about you,
agree.
Andy?
Yeah, look, the Eddie Murphy moment, I know that's the routine from Raw that kind of everybody knew. So referencing that within that context, I got where they ended it, that was the end of the routine. So, there's not more to say on that. I agree. I mean, there's when I can understand what Spike was trying to do with it in terms of with contemporary artists, and he tried it with Bad 25, trying to show the legacy of Michael in these artists. But we kind of know that. We kind of know it in their performances, in the way that they sing, in how Chris Brown dances, and how The Weeknd sings, and how Justin Timberlake moves. It's kind of evident. I don't know whether you need to keep propping up the legacy of, and look how impactful he still is. I think what you can do is really focus on the importance of that album in both Michael's career, but also in the time period that it was. It was the end of the disco era. This was kind of the first hybrid disco moving on, post-disco sort of album that really took off. And it was a starting point for, this artist that we all are still gravitating to. So I think more contextualization around the actual recording process, the album's impact, and its knock-on effect in terms of cultural impact. I don't need to see, the artists of today kind of talking about it.
Agreed.
And I would add that if you are going to get contemporary artists, then it would be of value, in my opinion, to get artists who have at least demonstrated some sort of longevity and staying power. If you're going to interview Beyonce and Justin Timberlake and Alicia Keys, as somebody mentioned already, people like that, people who have already had long careers, then that's one thing. But when you've got The Weeknd popping up, I mean, The Weeknd has been famous for like a year.
I had no idea who he was.
No, not true at all. He's been around he released 3 EPs prior to his last album, which was Kissland. Then he released this album. He's been popular and successful within certain segments of the music market. Obviously, this new album catapulted him further. But his first track on his first EP ever was the cover version of Dirty Diana. So he's not a Johnny Come Lately who's just going, oh yeah, Michael Jackson was an influence. He's someone who obviously has, through his career, kind of been influenced by Michael.
Oh, he's a Michael Jackson impersonator. If you watch him perform live, his whole act is just an impersonation of Michael Jackson. It's embarrassing, I think, when you watch him perform live. But he's not okay. So he's been popular in niche circles for a while, but he's nowhere near the level of credibility and longevity of somebody like Beyonce. I just don't see the value in gathering up just anybody who happens to be in the top 10 this week, because the chances are in 2 years they're not going to be in the top 10. If you're trying to cement Michael Jackson's legacy, then the way to do that is to use established, credible, long time popular artists. So Coldplay, for instance, have been massive for nearly 20 years now, and they cite Off the Wall, I believe, in multiple interviews as their greatest inspiration, or the album which has most impacted their sound, I think. And so when you're including people like The Weeknd, but you're not seeking out Beyonce and you're not seeking out Chris Martin and other people like that, it just, to me, is poor. And I think you'd be better off including nobody than including The Weeknd, who really contributes nothing to the documentary, as a lot of the talking heads did.
I've got a lot of respect for The Weeknd. I think he's got incredible music, and like Andy's saying, I've listened to many of his albums, and especially I was most excited about him when he brought those 3 EPs out, and I loved his Dirty Diana cover on one of those EPs, and I think he's a great artist. My concern is that, well, as a person watching this documentary, I don't want to see contemporary artists at all on there. I don't want to see people that weren't contextually connected to the album's recording. I get that you can talk about it from the point of view of them being influenced by the album, and that's cool, and it's cool to have Beyonce on there, and it's cool to have The Weeknd on there, and they get Michael's name out to new markets. But I don't actually care about that because I'm not learning anything new about the album or that time period. I want to see Rod Temperton on there talking about writing the songs. I want to see Janet Jackson and Randy Jackson on there talking about recording the demos in Havenhurst. That's what I want to see. There's none of that.
Yeah, and actually, you've just made a very good point. You've just talked about the purpose of the new artists being to get Michael's music out to new markets. That's exactly what this is. This is not a documentary, it's an advert. Just like the Grammy thing, it's not a tribute, it's an advert. The whole thing is marketing. It's of no substance, this documentary, really. The only stuff that's of substance is the contemporary footage, the contemporaneous stuff of Quincy, of Michael, of the performances. That stuff is all phenomenal. But aside from Gamble and Huff and a few other people, Suzanne DePass and maybe a handful of others. Those people, they contributed something valuable, which was information, context, whereas the majority of the talking heads really did just offer nothing beyond trivial, superficial opinions. And the only reason they're included, in my opinion, is as a marketing tool. That's exactly what this documentary is. It's an advert. It's a 90-minute advert for a product.
Which has been on sale for over 30 years.
Yeah.
I really loved the footage from, just like, learning about, The Wiz and Michael's visits to Studio 54, interview from Studio 54,
that was
going back further, the Motown stuff. Like, I think that whole first half could easily stand as a documentary on its own.
Yeah.
Especially with, like, people like Suzanne DePass and Berry Gordy, Gamble and Huff, like, going from Jackson 5, transitioning through to the Jacksons era before branching off. That could be at least an hour and a half, 2 hour documentary alone, and pad it out with those people even further and get into, more interactions and education that Michael was going through. And then the off the wall part, it felt quite rushed. Like, I don't mind the song by song breakdown format of the documentary, but they skip over so many songs so quickly that before you know it, you're in the next one. You go, well, hang on, I haven't actually learned a single thing about that track. I want to hear, like you said, from Rod Temperton, the writers and other producers who worked on it, demo stuff. They didn't do any of that. I was like, well, I just felt like I wanted more. They sort of breezed over so much stuff that I felt like I just was, not that I was unsatisfied, but I was left hungry for more so much but the footage was the saving grace for me. Like, seeing the footage from those eras, and yes, the quality is what it is, but that's fine. I will pay for that quite happily. Put it on Blu-ray. I will pay for that so happily. And that's exactly for Charles, like, his opinion. That's what I want. It was like, thank you for this. It was good. And for new fans, I think they will really love it and they will learn some stuff. Definitely, I think new fans might learn some things, especially from the contemporary artists. They might not know who Rosie Perez is or things like that. But the positive from this, and I can't stress this enough, is the footage that they did include and somewhat tease us with. It's like, oh my God, what I wouldn't give for pretty much any of that and all of it on some sort of format that I could pay for quite happily. Oh my God. Like, it's like, stop teasing us and just give us stuff like that, please.
Well, I think you'll probably get that with the Jackson's Live 40th anniversary reissue with the Triumph tour in what is it going to be, 2021, I guess.
fingers crossed. Like, don't get my hopes up, but oh my God, that would be incredible if that was the case.
I like the little snippets of footage in there, like not necessarily the big performances, although they were amazing, but I remember seeing some footage in there. I think it was backstage at Motown 25 or something where Michael was being interviewed, and it was like, I just couldn't believe how high quality it was. I was watching it in 1080p, and it was footage from like the very early 80s, and or late 70s, and it looked incredible. So crisp. I think it might have been a news crew or something interviewing Michael and his brothers.
I think that might have been from the Triumph tour. It looked
Yeah.
like it might have been backstage at the Triumph tour.
Yeah, he had a similar shirt to what he was wearing in Motown 25, but I
Okay.
don't think it was Motown 25. It was sequined and it was kind of collared like that, but yeah, it was really exciting to see that footage, like Q's saying.
It's also interesting for me because I obviously watched it when it premiered here on Showtime. So actually having that sensation of watching it, knowing there are other people throughout the country kind of tuning in as well at the same time, that shared experience potentially heightened it versus, watching it isolated hours later. So it's interesting to hear other people's point of view on the actual viewing experience of watching it. It's like, I guess, separate to going to a concert and experiencing it with 30,000 people, and as opposed to going to watch the live DVD at home, a week later. I just wonder, because my take was it was, definitely a step up from Bad 25 and an enjoyable thing. And I actually came away kind of buzzed to kind of, continue to listen to the album. But yeah, I just wonder within that kind of live broadcast format, whether the listeners potentially enjoyed it more because there was live tweeting, there was this, there was that, there was a whole kind of more community feel again versus, just watching it off YouTube or a rip somewhere else.
It would be really great to like live tweet with people, like everyone get a hashtag and it'll comments on Facebook or something and do that. I think that would really add something to it. As we found out recently when Carly, we did a live tweet of Moonwalker viewing. It was a very spur of the moment thing, but it was really, really good fun. My God, I'd love to just be sitting there live tweeting a Triumph concert. Oh my God. So overall, I thought it was good, but it could have been really stellar.
Yeah, it was. I think it was. Curiously, see, what I want more of is information rather than opinion. And
Yes.
Bad 25 included a lot more information from direct contributors when you think about the number of people who were involved in the creation of that album. But the problem with Bad 25 was that it was so lumpen, and it was almost the opposite. So whereas in this documentary, they'd be halfway through talking about a song, and then it would almost jump cut to suddenly talking about a different song. This is the Off the Wall documentary. It was like, well, I'm interested to hear actually that it was originally 2 hours and it was cut down to 90 minutes, because it seems that in hindsight, yeah, that makes sense, because it looks like chunks were just cut out almost almost at random. I mean, they would literally be halfway through talking about a song and then just suddenly they're talking about something else. But in Bad, it was the other way, where I think they spent almost half an hour talking about the Bad video, and not only talking about the Bad video, but acting like it was like fucking Mean Streets or something, acting like it was like the greatest film that's ever been made. And you're just going, what are you talking about? And so it's kind of gone to the other extreme. I think it's definitely more watchable than Bad 25, because Bad 25 just became almost like you were being tortured, because it was so long and it spent so long dealing with things, like unnecessarily long amounts of time dealing with minor things. And this has gone the other way. And I actually thought the song by song format, as you've commented on, some of you, if that does not work as a format if you're going to ignore some of the songs, because what it does, it looks like you're dismissing half of the album. That was the way this documentary came across to me. There were songs that were dealt with in like 30 seconds. And that's almost like saying, oh yeah, that song's rubbish, that's not worth talking about. So to me, it seemed to dismiss what are, for me, some of my favourite songs on the album, like it's the Falling in Love and Burn This Disco Out. And they almost seem to be saying at one point in the documentary, yeah, the first half of the album's really good and then the rest is a bit shit. That was, when you had the various people saying, oh, as a DJ, you've got these 4 songs, whatever it is. And I was thinking, well, why are you not playing, as a DJ, why are you not playing Burn This Disco Out? It felt to me very rushed in places, and like and dismissive of quite a large proportion of the album, actually.
All right, so The documentary should be coming out for purchase pretty shortly. It comes out in combination with the album release. Many people would have seen it already, obviously, during that Showtime airing. But if you live in an international market and were not able to catch it on Showtime and haven't downloaded it dodgily like some of us, then you'll be able to grab a legitimate copy of it in connection with the Off the Wall release, Blu-ray or DVD, depending on your preference.
Jamon, also, I know this is in Australia, if you pre-order a copy of Michael Jackson's Journey from Motown to Off the Wall CD DVD, you get an exclusive invitation to a promotional VIP fan screening.
That's right.
Yes, if you pre-order your copy through eventcinemas.com.au, which is an Australian chain, you'll receive a ticket to attend the exclusive fan screening, which is on Thursday, the 25th of February at 7 p.m. I guess if you went to that site, it would tell you which are participating cities and cinemas across Australia.
Sounds very exciting.
That's the same night as the Prince concert in Perth, so hopefully I might have a ticket to that instead.
All right, so finds of the week. Q, do you want to go first?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, do it. I'm really curious what yours is.
All right, have you guys got Google in front of you?
Yes.
I have heard of that.
Yep.
The Googles.
If you access the Googlies, and if you type in the most beautiful smile in the world and hit images.
Wow, that's incredible.
Isn't that cool?
There's a lot of Michael.
A lot.
But there's also Ariana Grande, so, you know.
I know, but...
There's a lot of Michael.
There's a lot of Michael.
That's awesome.
That was my find of the week.
That's a cool find, Q.
I know, right? I was like, I saw it somewhere, someone mentioned it, and I was like, hang on, let me try that. And I was like, whoa.
And Janet's in there as well.
Yep. They got very similar smiles.
Jacksons represent.
Yeah, but how cool is that?
Yeah, so good. Love that find.
There you go. Interactive 3D Google Find of the Week.
All right, so next find. Andy.
Okay, so this is something which, by the time everyone's listening, they've probably watched a million times. But as of a couple of hours ago, it just got released. Another leak. It's the Michael Jackson L'Uomo Vogue making of. On YouTube, you can search it. It's on MJ Beats Rare Stuff.
Get the fuck out of here. Are you serious?
It goes, let me put it in context, it goes for 1 minute 35 seconds. But what's great is you actually see a couple of the photo shoots with Michael, and they're playing his music, him dancing to it. So you've seen the photos, you now get to see how those photos were created. So you'll know the poses from all the issue that came out. But now you get to see, okay, he was dancing to Childhood during that, or he was dancing to Don't Stop Till You Get Enough during that, or it's very cool. So check it out. I'm sure you guys will link to it on your show notes.
Yes. Oh my God. I can't wait to see it.
That's the find of the week from me.
Thank you. Cool, awesome. Thanks for breaking that news to me as well, because you haven't even put it in the text here. So that's exciting.
Charles.
Okay, I've got two quick ones, and they've both been inspired by what we've been talking about tonight. So firstly, when we were talking about the Joseph Fiennes thing, I was reminded, and please don't take this as a recommendation, I'm just offering it as a curiosity. There is a hideous film from 2007 called Mr. Lonely. I don't know if any of you have ever seen it. And it's,
I know about this film.
It's Diego Luna, and he plays a Michael Jackson impersonator who goes and lives on a commune where all of the inhabitants are celebrity impersonators, and he's living with Marilyn Monroe, James Dean, Shirley Temple, Charlie Chaplin, the Three Stooges, and a bunch of others. It is an unbelievably awful film, in my opinion. I watched it and I was like, "What? Why have I just watched this?" But anyway, if you have got a few hours to kill and you're on Xanax, then maybe try Mr. Lonely. And then the other thing, just talking about talking heads. I think that there was a documentary which came out a few years ago which used talking heads to incredible effect because the talking heads were all so well placed to offer their recollections, and that was David Guest's documentary Life of an Icon. And the first I don't remember how long it is, maybe the first hour, because he hits a wall when Michael goes into adulthood because he was banned from using any of Michael's adult music or performance footage. So but up to that point, the documentary is incredible. It's basically the most kind of in-depth, forensic, but warm and emotive recollection of Michael's years as a childhood star that I've ever seen, with contributions from so many Motown artists and people from back in the day. And I really highly recommend that.
Yeah.
I've actually never seen that. I keep thinking about it, but I've never seen that doco.
It's really good.
Surprisingly good, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Charles.
Thanks, Charles.
Jamon.
So my find of the week's a tiny little snippet of footage. It's probably the shortest video find of the week I've ever given. It's another great little video on Lavelle Smith Jr.'s Instagram page. If you go there, you will see a bit of footage from the MTV 1995 VMA rehearsals. And not the rehearsals where Michael's on stage with Slash, joking around, talking about slamming the guitar, which is also awesome footage. But this is rehearsal footage from some dance studio somewhere. It's got like a wooden floor, like a dance studio. Michael's in costume, and he's rehearsing that line where in the show he talks about, I think he says something like, "For those of you who like living dangerously, this one's for you." And he turns around and runs to the back of the dance studio. And it's such a small little tiny bit of footage, but I really love watching it because it showed me that Michael didn't just rehearse the dances and the dance steps and everything so hard, but he also rehearsed those little interludes and sometimes the things he said to great extent as well. So it's just a fun little thing to watch, and I'll put it in the show notes if you want to see it.
Oh, thank you, Lavelle. You always share awesome stuff on your Instagram. I love those. They're like some of my favorite Instagram posts that I see come up.
Yeah, totally. And there we go. That's our finds.
His little commentary on the little paragraphs that he writes for it as well. You learn a bit.
Yes.
Very cool.
All right.
Hey.
Yes.
Andy and Charles, thank you so much for being part of Season 2, Episode 1. But what is this? Episode 24. First episode of Season 2, Episode 24 of the MJCast. Thank you so much, Charles, for returning and for your discussion and opinions and expertise. And Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure. I was so excited when Jamon said, guess what? We're going to be speaking with Andy. So I was really thrilled, genuinely. And thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and you were awesome.
Cheers, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's always a pleasure to be on the show.
Excellent. Thank you to listeners as well.
So Andy, where can people find out about you online?
Go to mj101series.com or on Twitter, MJ_1_0_1. You can find out all about the MJ101 series.
Great. And Charles?
My website is www.charles-thomson, which is THOMSON.net, but I've not updated it for probably over a year, so apologies for that. But you can find a lot of my court reports and that sort of thing on that website, including my stuff on Michael.
Awesome. Thank you. And of course, the MJCast. You can find us at themjcast.com, which is where we have all of our show notes and all of our latest episodes. You can subscribe to us on iTunes by simply searching the MJCast in the iTunes podcast library. We're also on social media, on Twitter at the MJCast, Instagram at the MJCast, Facebook at facebook.com/themjcast. We're at Tumblr at,
themjcast.tumblr.com.
themjcast.tumblr.com. And am I forgetting YouTube? Yes, I am. YouTube /plus the MJCast.
You guys are breaking the internet.
Boom.
And we would love to hear from listeners. We had some awesome emails over the break. But if you do want to email us feedback on today's show, thoughts and opinions, the mjcast@icloud.com is how you can reach us via the interweb emails. Speaking of mailbag, Wendy Baker, Verna Gold, Jack from Vancouver, shout out, Sue Collins from Pittsburgh, David Manley, Andrew Johnson, Karen O'Halloran, Jason Garcia, and Alejandra Herta. Thank you so much for emailing us over the break. We had obviously a lot of mail there, and if I've missed anyone, thank you so much also. But loved getting those emails. Some of them are incredible. Oh my God.
David Manley talking about his puppeting career.
Yes, and a real little mystery picture that he shared with us of a Captain EO maquette that was on display in the Imagination Pavilion in the theatre lobby back in the premiere week of Captain EO back in Epcot Centre. So that I actually put up, and if anyone has a look in our pictures on Twitter, at least you will see that. And if you have any information on it, let us know, because I even shared it with a Disney park historian, and they'd never seen anything like that. So it'd be great to get a good quality photo of that maquette, or even know where it is now. So thank you so much for that, David. Also, thank you to Vera, of course, for all that you're doing. Support you big time. Thank you to our survey respondents as well. We did the survey during the break, which of course we announced in the last episode of season 1. And for those 100-odd people that participated, thank you so much. We very much appreciate your time, your 15 minutes that you gave to us. And we learnt a lot, and we are going through that feedback. And we'll be, implementing what we agree with.
Absolutely. So there we go. That's our premiere episode of Season 2, done and dusted. Thank you so much, listeners, for tuning in and listening to the MJCast again. We'll have another show out in a fortnight's time. This season's going to be very exciting. Lots of shows to keep you updated on Michael Jackson news, and of course, lots of specials in the works as well with people who knew and worked with Michael Jackson. Hope you guys have a really enjoyable fortnight ahead, and we look forward to talking about Michael Jackson and the Jackson family with you guys again on the next episode of the MJCast. Make sure to keep Michaeling.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jamon. Thank you, Andy. And thank you, Charles. Michael on.
That's a wrap.